Itsuki was once just a normal child, but one day his entire life changed when monsters suddenly attacked the Earth. Those monsters killed his parents right in front of his eyes. Left alone in this world, he swore that he would kill every single monster. 10 years later, the day finally arrived when he could awaken his power and become a hunter. He stepped onto the stage as the world's most powerful hunters watched, placing his hand on the awakening stone. But little did he know, fate had other plans for him. He awakened the most mysterious talent, Limit Breaker, a power no one knew anything about. On top of that, he discovered that his level was fixed at level 0, meaning he could never level up. Now the question is, how will our protagonist take revenge on the monsters who killed his parents? This is only the beginning. There is much more to this story, so like this video before we begin this tale. This story starts with the memory of that day. Countless eerie black monuments fell from the sky. They dropped through the clouds one after another, their shadows covering the city below. Strange glowing spheres and lightning-like energy swirled around them as they descended. Right after that, barriers were deployed. A massive purple beam shot upward from the middle of the city, twisting the sky like a vortex. People standing on the streets stopped and stared, watching the glowing tower rise in front of them. Monsters called disaster beasts broke through the barriers and invaded the human world. Among them appeared a giant dark figure, the demon of destruction, Ringa, standing tall with purple energy swirling behind him. Soon, countless terrifying beasts flooded the streets. Armored monsters, winged creatures, and huge clawed beasts rushed forward while people screamed and ran. Disaster struck instantly. A monstrous armored creature swung its arm, sending a man falling backward as he shouted for everyone to run. Nearby, his child cried and reached out, calling for his dad as his mother ran while chaos erupted around them. Across the streets, different beasts attacked from all directions. A winged creature swooped down, a burrowing beast erupted from the ground, and blue-flamed monsters charged toward the fleeing civilians. Bodies fell on the road as the destruction spread, and the entire area was swallowed by panic. The armored monster rushed forward with blue flames bursting around its body. Its jaws opened wide as it roared, blue light flashing in its eyes. It shot a swirling vortex of blue flames toward a woman who ran away, holding a child tightly against her chest. The flames spread across the road as the monsters closed in. That woman was caught by the blue flames and threw her child ahead. The small boy reached out weakly while lying on the ground. The woman's voice trembled as she repeated the same word, telling her child, Itsuki, to run. The child looked at her with tear-filled eyes and called out for his mom. Just then, suddenly, someone shouted Itsuki's name again. A drop of sweat slid down a boy's face as the voice echoed. In the next moment, the scene returned to the present. A girl with pink hair turned around toward him. She asked what was wrong, saying he was spacing out. He stood among the lined-up students and answered quietly that it was nothing. Hearing that, she narrowed her eyes and leaned in slightly, asking him again if that was really true. Then, while he was crying, the boy, who was the same Itsuki from that day, stood still with tears running down from one eye. Before he could answer, another student suddenly wrapped an arm around his shoulder and spoke cheerfully. He said Itsuki must be sleepy, since he was usually asleep at this time, but today there was suddenly a school-wide assembly. While they were talking, Itsuki pointed toward the stage and told his friends that the teacher there was dressed strangely. On stage, the teacher, wearing some kind of armored helmet, explained what happened after the disaster beasts appeared. Some humans gained the power to fight back, and they became known as Awakened. The armored man described how, 10 years ago, the largest disaster beast attack happened at the northern shore of the Blue River. Awakened from all over the world crossed the river to repel them in what became known as the River Crossing War. Though attacks had decreased since then, the number of descending monuments had started to rise again. A large-scale attack similar to that war was likely coming soon. Itsuki's classmate leaned in again and pointed at a man on the stage. He explained that the person was Izumi Nento, the commander-in-chief of the northern continent. He asked how Itsuki could be from the north and still not know him. Itsuki looked at Izumi Nento quietly. He said the name sounded familiar and admitted he once imagined a hunched old man with a long beard. But the person on stage looked stranger than he expected. Itsuki's classmate grinned and told him he understood. But despite the odd appearance, Izumi Nento was the first awakened. It was thanks to him that humanity knew about the monuments and the disaster beasts. Itsuki's friend spoke excitedly, saying that this man was the strongest awakened. He added that even Tiwajin, known as the Light of Humanity, was his student. The scene shifted back to the armored man, as he explained that recent research showed even ordinary people who had not awakened yet had a chance of gaining power by touching a monument. Izumi Nento stood on the stage, his long cloak spreading like black flames. He told the students he had come to let them try to awaken. He urged them to devote themselves to the fight against the disaster beasts. Just as he said that, a glowing blue blade slashed across the stage as the monument burst open. Light shot outward, scattering fragments, while a guard in sunglasses stood nearby watching. Seeing this, the students reacted with loud excitement. One of them shouted in shock as a monument rose from the ground, wondering if it was magic. Another yelled that this was not the time to be surprised. They clenched their fists, saying it felt like a dream, praying to become awakened. In the crowd, Itsuki's friend grabbed his arm in excitement. He told Itsuki that they finally had a chance to become awakened. His eyes shined as he said the word finally. Saying that, he started walking toward the stage. Seeing this, Itsuki's friend grabbed his shoulder, shouting that he shouldn't be left behind. The pink-haired girl called out to them, telling Itsuki to get back in line properly. But Itsuki walked past her, and a red glow flashed across his eyes. The girl looked at him in shock as the light streaked through the air. A close-up showed Itsuki's expression changing. His eyes shined red with excitement as he said that the day had finally come. On stage, a student touched the large black monument, but nothing happened. A guard immediately called out that it was no good, and told the next person to step forward. The students watching reacted nervously. One boy pointed out that the previous student had broken the school's athletic record in his first year. He said that if even someone like that couldn't awaken, then there was no way he could. The girl beside him replied that athletic ability probably wasn't related, and that it was too early to give up. More students reached out to touch the monument one after another. The guard repeated the same word, next, as the line kept moving forward. The students crowded together anxiously. One boy with white hair nervously pointed out that not a single person had awakened yet. Others muttered in worry. A girl with short brown hair said she thought it would be easy. The boy beside her trembled, wondering if their entire school would be wiped out. The guard called out the next name loudly. Oishi Hikaru. Nearby, a group of students whispered their concerns. One girl said she didn't want him to awaken. Another explained that he was already a habitual bully, and if he gained powers, they would be in trouble. A boy suddenly pointed toward the monument and shouted that something was happening. Lightning erupted violently from the monument, blasting outward. Oishi Hikaru's body was lifted off the ground as crackling blue electricity surrounded him. The sudden burst drew everyone's attention. A glowing blue screen appeared beside him, showing his information as he grinned excitedly. He thought to himself that both Izumi Nento and the woman beside him would surely recognize him now. The screen displayed, Oishi Hikaru, Human, Level 0, Job Elementalist, Lightning Gift, Grade 2, Undisclosed, Status Attack 3, Agility 4, Defense 2, Magic 3, Total 12 stat points. Watching from beside the monument, the blue-haired woman spoke softly. She told her father that they finally had one. She explained that Level 0 stats usually totaled only 5, but this boy had reached 12. Her father, Izumi Nento, remained calm. The girl said it was still better than nothing. The school courtyard grew silent as Oishi Hikaru raised both arms triumphantly. Confetti sparkled around him while he grinned proudly. He muttered to himself, wondering if the old man Nento had anything to say to the first awakened student. But before he could boast further, someone grabbed his shoulder from behind. He turned sharply, surprised to see Itsuki stepping past him. Oishi spun toward Itsuki angrily, shouting at him. He demanded to know why Itsuki was touching him with dirty hands, yelling if he had a death wish. The watching students whispered among themselves. One girl asked who the boy was, noticing that he had cut the line. Another replied that it was Tenma Itsuki from Class 5. Someone else muttered that he was finished. Once Oishi targeted someone, it was over. From above, the blue-haired woman and Commander Nento observed quietly. The woman narrowed her eyes and said she sensed incredibly intense emotions coming from that student. Itsuki stood before the towering monument, placing his hand on the stone. His eyes glowed red as dark memories flashed through him. He muttered that he refused to forget his hatred for the disaster beasts. He had burned the events of that day deep into his mind. Commander Nento stared forward, as if sensing something unbelievable. Out on the awakening platform, a massive blue apparition rose behind Itsuki. The glowing figure towered over him, holding a sword and radiating overwhelming power. Itsuki stood calmly beneath it. As blue light filled the air, the monument erupted with energy. A sharp glowing structure formed above Itsuki, surrounded by swirling streams of light. The light expanded outward, wrapping around the entire area like a giant lotus blooming in the sky. The crowd below watched as the school grounds were covered in a glowing dome. Students stared upward, speechless. One boy pointed out that the pillar of light reached hundreds of meters into the sky. Another said it looked far more spectacular than Oshi's awakening. Two of Itsuki's classmates watched with excitement. Both of them smiled and cheered proudly, shouting that this was exactly what they expected from Itsuki. The blue-haired officer stared at the sky in shock. She said that this phenomenon only appeared when the rarest job, Order Breaker, was born. She placed a hand near her mouth, unable to hide her surprise. Even Commander Nento said he looked forward to seeing how capable the student would be. Seeing that, Oishi's expression twisted with frustration as he glared at the overwhelming light. Itsuki opened his eyes in confusion. Surrounded by shimmering blue energy, he wondered where he was and asked himself if he had awakened. Looking around, he found himself sitting cross-legged in the center of a massive glowing lotus made of light. Countless petals surrounded him, floating in a calm, otherworldly space. Suddenly, a blue system screen appeared before him. Itsuki stared at it in shock as it displayed Tenma Itsuki's stats. He was a human at level 0, which was fixed. His job was Order Breaker, Nirvana. His gift was Nirvana, a special grade. His level was fixed. His stats increased when acquiring skills. It removed all debuffs and fully healed injuries. Just then, another blue window appeared, showing his skill, Over Mimesis, which was Z rank. It analyzed enemy attacks and allowed the acquisition of counter skills. Then another screen showed Itsuki's stats. His were Attack 0, Agility 0, Defense 0, Magic 0, Total 0. Itsuki's face went pale as he stared at the results. His jaw dropped, and he exclaimed silently that everything was at 0. But then, two blue system windows appeared in front of Itsuki. The first announced that the Z-rank skill Over Mimesis had been acquired. The second stated that the special grade gift, Nirvana, had activated, increasing all of his stats by 200. Another screen displayed the changes. Attack went from 0 to 200. Agility went from 0 to 200. Defense went from 0 to 200. Seeing this, Itsuki's expression brightened. He looked at the glowing screen with excitement and said he understood. He realized that whenever he gained new skills through Over Mimesis, Nirvana would raise his stats. Even if he couldn't level up like others, he could still grow stronger in his own way. He clenched his fist and smiled confidently. He admitted he didn't know what level this power compared to, but he had no doubt he had become an awakened. With determination in his eyes, he declared that he would annihilate the disaster beasts. A massive burst of blue light exploded from the monument. Students around him shielded their faces and shouted that the light was too bright. Some grabbed their eyes in pain. Through the blinding radiance, Itsuki's silhouette stood tall within the monument's glow. Lightning and energy swirled around him in a powerful display. Oishi stared at the scene, trembling with disbelief. His face twisted as he shouted that such a thing was impossible. The blue-haired officer gasped as she looked at the glowing monitor. She covered her mouth in shock and said that these stats were unbelievable for a rookie awakened. Even Commander Nento admitted that it was hard to believe, but stated that Itsuki was undoubtedly among the strongest of all new awakened in history. Outside, Itsuki stepped out of the light, petals of blue energy swirling around him, watching his silhouette shine with power. Just one word left Commander Nento's mouth: the strongest. A system window displayed his public information. Tenma Itsuki Human, Level 0 Fixed. Job Order Breaker. Gift Special Grade. Undisclosed. Skill undisclosed. Status, Attack 200, Agility 200, Defense 200, Magic 200, Total 800. In the crowd, students and teachers erupted in cheers. They shouted that Tenma's stats had shot up all at once. Someone cried out in disbelief, saying they never imagined their school would have someone this amazing. An older teacher yelled that this feat would go down in school history. But among the cheering crowd, Oishi trembled with rage. Lightning crackled around him as his eyes glowed red. He clenched his teeth and glared at Itsuki, furious that the cheers he believed should have been his were now stolen away. Oishi's rage exploded as lightning surged across his body. He shouted that a loser like Itsuki should stay a loser. Students around him backed away as sparks crackled through the air, their faces tense with shock. Electricity flooded the entire hall, and Oishi stepped forward with a crazed expression. He declared that he would eliminate Itsuki using his newly acquired skill. Above the crowd, Itsuki stood calmly, staring down from the top of the monument as lightning scattered below him. Itsuki clenched his fist as a blue system window appeared. The screen displayed: C-rank skill, Silver Serpent, detected. Over Mimesis activated, Itsuki's eyes sharpened as multiple blue panels began processing. The analysis started at 27%, then climbed quickly, 57%, 69%, and rising, while lightning flickered around him. Itsuki made his move and jumped with lightning speed. The floor cracked under the impact as the lightning slammed down. Students gasped when they looked up and realized something was wrong. One girl asked where Itsuki had gone. Another student said they saw a flash of electricity. And then Itsuki suddenly vanished. Oishi looked around in confusion, wondering where Itsuki was. A glowing blue window reached 88% as Itsuki appeared behind Oishi like a shadow wrapped in lightning. His eyes shone with a blinding horizontal beam. Oishi froze in terror. Sweat poured down his face as he realized Itsuki was behind him. He panicked, unable to move. Itsuki placed a hand on Oishi's shoulder. His voice was cold as he told Oishi to consider himself lucky for being born human. He added that if Oishi were a disaster beast, he would have killed him about 100 times already. Oishi trembled uncontrollably, fear tightening his entire body. Moments later, Itsuki casually stepped forward while Oishi collapsed onto the ground. Another student shouted in shock, asking when Itsuki had moved behind him. Someone else laughed nervously, saying Oishi must have been so scared his legs gave out. Another warned them to be quiet before Oishi heard them. A new panel floated above Itsuki, showing 94%, then rising quickly. Blue energy swirled around him as the progress reached 99%. Itsuki glanced at the glowing screen and commented that maybe the analysis was fast because it was only a C-rank skill. The display turned pitch black and flashed. Analysis progress 100%. Lightning exploded around him as a new message appeared, saying C-rank skill Thunderbreaker acquired. Itsuki stood in the center of the crackling blue electricity, his body glowing as the newly gained power wrapped around him like living lightning. The students watched nervously as the light began to glow again. One of the boys stared in shock, saying it was happening once more. Another student, wearing sunglasses, adjusted them with a grin, saying it was a good thing he had brought them. Inside the glowing space, Itsuki appeared sitting calmly with a thoughtful expression. He realized that every time an analysis finished, he was forcibly brought into this strange place. In front of him, the system windows appeared, stating that the analysis of Silver Serpent was complete, and the skill Thunderbreaker had been acquired. Another window opened, showing the description of Thunderbreaker Level 1. The skill allowed him to absorb C-rank and lower lightning attacks into his body. When releasing the absorbed lightning energy, his agility would increase by 50%. It also had a passive effect. Each time he absorbed a C-rank lightning attack, his agility would permanently increase by 5%. Another message added that all his stats had increased by 10, all debuffs were removed, and his injuries were fully healed. Outside, the students shielded their eyes as a massive burst of blue light exploded from Itsuki's body. The lightning wrapped around him in swirling arcs as he stood in the center of the arena steps. The electric pressure pushed outward, and the crowd instinctively stepped back or covered their faces. Someone shouted that Itsuki was now cloaked in lightning from head to toe. Another student panicked, saying Itsuki's lightning was even brighter than Oishi's. Oishi, who had attacked him earlier, stared with trembling eyes, unable to believe how Atsuki had learned a skill like that. Atsuki's body glowed intensely as the system displayed his rising stats. It showed each attribute increasing: attack, agility, defense, and magic, all rising from 200 to 210, bringing his total from 800 to 840. Just then, the students looked up at the sky in confusion. One of them said it had been sunny just a moment ago. Another asked if it was rain. A third student lifted his hand, trying to feel the drops, when someone suddenly shouted that something was falling. A dark, coffin-shaped object wrapped in lightning descended from the stormy clouds. The rain poured harder as it crashed down toward the school grounds. The woman with blue hair and glasses saw it and shouted in shock, calling it a monument. She questioned why it had appeared here of all places. Commander Nento quickly announced that the school-wide assembly was cancelled, and ordered everyone to evacuate outside the school grounds, just like in their drills. He realized that there was no doubt the target was him. The woman turned to Commander Nento and told him that they should escape too, since combat wasn't their specialty. But Commander Nento beside her shook his head. He warned that if they ran, everyone else would panic. He pointed ahead, telling her to look, because the boy standing there was calmer than both of them. Ahead of them, lightning exploded around the descending object. Students ran in all directions, fleeing in fear. Only one boy, Itsuki, remained still in the middle of the field, bathed in a faint blue glow. From behind, the blue-haired woman shouted at him, demanding to know why he wasn't running. A massive dark pillar crashed down from the sky, shaking the ground as debris exploded outward. Rain poured heavily around it. Nearby, a group of students panicked. One boy shouted that disaster beasts were coming and urged Itsuki to escape, but Itsuki, with glowing red eyes, stood still. His voice was cold as he declared that he would exterminate every single one of them. His friends stared at him in shock. One of them yelled that he would die if he didn't run. Another insisted that since he had only just awakened, he couldn't possibly fight disaster beasts. They told him to leave everything to the other awakened, but Itsuki shook his head. He calmly told them to trust him. The pink-haired girl hesitated, worry written all over her face. Finally, she shouted that if he died, he shouldn't blame them. She grabbed the other guy's clothes and dragged him with her. The glasses-wearing boy asked her if it was really okay to let him go, reminding her that the enemy was a disaster beast, a walking weapon of mass murder. As the two ran off, Itsuki looked ahead with a crazed smile. His eye glowed bright red through the rain. He muttered that his first enemy after becoming an awakened was the one who killed his parents, and that it was lucky. Lightning curled around him as he stepped forward. A glowing panel appeared beside him, displaying the status of the creature before him. It was Skeleton Soldier 10369. Level 8. Gift. Grade 2. Defense increases by 100%. If the enemy's attack exceeds its own defense, the gift becomes invalid. Skill. Bonefire. B rank. Its stats were: Attack. 15. Agility 10. Defense 120 plus 120. Magic 30. Total 295. The skeleton soldier stood covered in blue flames as Itsuki faced it head-on. A surge of lightning wrapped around Itsuki's arms as he tightened his stance. His red eyes glowed sharply as he wondered if he should test the skill he had just acquired. In the next moment, he charged forward, electricity exploding around his body. Blue lightning trailed behind him as he rushed toward the flaming skeleton beast on the field. The two forces collided, sparks scattering through the rain. The skeletal beast swung its arms to punch, but Itsuki dodged. Then Itsuki swung his electrified fist with full force, shouting that he would not let anyone else die. His punch struck the creature's chest, and a violent burst of energy erupted. The impact sent the disaster beast flying across the field, smashing through the school building. The ground trembled as debris scattered in all directions. Students watching from afar stared in shock. One student said Itsuki's strength was too overwhelming, that maybe they didn't need to run anymore. A female student was stunned, seeing how the impact had blasted the monster away in a single hit. The blue-haired inspector stared at the ruined wall, stunned that a rookie who had just become awakened could send a level 8 disaster beast flying with only one blow. Heavy rain poured down as Commander Nento watched from a distance, thinking to himself that Itsuki's speed and power were on a completely different level from other level zeros, but even then, he believed that defeating a skeleton soldier was impossible. He explained that skeleton soldiers had two troublesome abilities. The first was a gift that increased their defense. The second was a terrifying skill called Bonefire, a flame that burned anything it touched into ash. Blue flames erupted violently across the field, spreading like a wave toward Itsuki. The students gasped as the fire surged forward. Itsuki's friends cried out in fear, shouting Itsuki's name. Oishi stepped forward with a crazed smile, yelling that the fool who didn't know his place would just burn to ash. Meanwhile, glowing screens appeared in front of Itsuki. A system message informed him that the enemy was using Bonefire. The analysis began, first at 1%, then rapidly accelerating. As the blue flames engulfed him, more screens appeared. 25%. Itsuki stood firmly inside the blazing Bonefire, surrounded by data streams. He calmly observed that the analysis speed increased whenever the enemy's skill struck him. The blue-haired instructor watched with widening eyes. She said that even a level 10 awakened wouldn't stand a chance if they took a direct hit. Blue flames continued to swallow the arena as Itsuki stood in the center, half of his body burned away and glowing like a skeleton. The blue-haired instructor's voice echoed through the flames, saying it would be tragic for a genius who had just appeared to be killed by a disaster beast before he could grow. System windows floated around Itsuki, showing 77% and 81%. Itsuki looked at his burning body and muttered that this was what it felt like when the body burned. He added softly that it must have hurt. A memory flickered through the flames. He saw his mother's face, half burned away. He realized that it hurt so much, but even in her last minutes, she smiled so as not to scare Itsuki. Commander Nento peered out with a sharp gaze, wondering if Itsuki hadn't used his full power yet. The blue fire swirled violently as the progress bar climbed. Itsuki's skeletal hand tightened, and he said that once the analysis was complete, the enemy was finished. The system window flashed. Analysis progress. 100%. Outside the flames, the students whispered nervously. One asked if it had been too soon to hope for a rookie who had just become awakened. Another admitted he had been stupid to expect anything. But suddenly, someone pointed forward in shock. He shouted that the blue lotus flower had appeared again. He said Itsuki might show them another miracle. Blue light swirled around Itsuki as he stood inside the burning aura, wondering what kind of skill he would gain this time. The flames around him continued to fade, revealing his burned and cracked body beneath the blue energy. Then a system window appeared, showing that the analysis of Bonefire was complete. It stated that a new skill, Black Wall, had been acquired. More windows followed, explaining the skill. The active effect would create ice on the body by consuming magic power, and could block B rank or lower fire skills. The passive effect increased defense when blocking those skills. Another notification appeared, saying that Black Wall LV2 had been acquired and that all of his stats had increased by 20. It stated that all debuffs were removed and his injuries were fully healed. A new window showed his updated status. Attack, agility, defense, and magic had all risen from 210 to 230, bringing his total from 820. Itsuki looked at the glowing screen calmly. He remembered how even his strongest attack earlier couldn't break the skeleton soldier's defense. Now, with this new increase, he believed he should be able to do it. Suddenly, blue lotus petals unfolded around him, blooming like a massive light flower. Itsuki stood at the center, his body surrounded by shining energy. The students watching gasped in shock. One of them cried out in relief, saying Itsuki was alive. Others cheered loudly, convinced that he would succeed. Someone pointed out that a full recovery like this was practically a miracle. The blue-haired instructor stared in shock as she watched the scene unfold. She wondered aloud if Itsuki had a self-healing skill. She had seen him use a lightning element skill earlier, so she couldn't understand how he was recovering. Commander Nento was also shocked. He remembered that order breakers were considered the most mysterious job, but even among them, Itsuki seemed uniquely strange. Meanwhile, Itsuki stood in the center of the glowing lotus petals. His body had recovered completely, not a single injury left. Blue fragments drifted around him as he looked down at his restored form. Itsuki whispered in disbelief, saying it was a perfect recovery. He wondered whether he would heal even if his limbs were cut off, or if his brain was destroyed. He admitted he was curious about the limits of his self-healing. Suddenly, the skeleton soldier roared, its armor burning with blue bone fire. The flames surged violently as the monster charged forward. Itsuki turned calmly, raising his arm as black spikes spread across his skin. The blue flames rushed toward him. His entire body became engulfed in the fire, but he stood unmoving within it. Moments later, his silhouette appeared again through the blaze. Thick layers of black spikes covered him completely, and his red eyes glowed coldly behind the cracked ice armor. Itsuki cracked through the air as he shot upward. The explosion of blue flames shook the area when he crashed down. Itsuki's armored body glowed with electricity as he readied another strike. The skeletal beast struck, but Itsuki moved again, instantly appearing behind the beast faster than anyone could follow. Itsuki then raised his arm, and it turned into a massive black spike sword, lightning running through it. Itsuki moved with lightning speed, and with a single slash, cut the skeletal beast in two with that sword. The students watching from afar were stunned. One of them said that Itsuki moved behind the disaster beast in an instant, as if he had teleported. Another said that only awakened people could track movements like that. Oishi was also stunned, saying she couldn't see Itsuki's movements at all. She compared it to what she had seen before. The blue-haired instructor questioned if someone like Itsuki could really be a rookie. On the other hand, as the dust settled, Itsuki stood alone. As the black spikes on his body disappeared, he kicked and destroyed the skeleton beast's head. He was stunned to realize that it not only generated solid armor to protect his body, but could also shape that armor into any kind of weapon he wanted. A divine skill that combined both offense and defense. Suddenly, someone shouted his name. Itsuki turned his head in surprise as his friend rushed toward him and wrapped him tightly in a relieved hug, saying he was glad Itsuki had won because he had been worried the entire time. Itsuki stayed still for a moment before asking about Saya. His friend pulled back and admitted that Saya had been watching earlier with a face that looked like she might cry, but now she was nowhere to be seen. Itsuki looked toward the crowd, wondering why she didn't come. He scanned the students in the distance, confusion growing. He quietly wondered if she might be angry. Not far away, the blue-haired instructor watched the aftermath of the fight. She spoke seriously, noting that for a boy to defeat a skeleton soldier, Something even a level 10 awakened would struggle against was unbelievable. Commander Nento called the blue-haired instructor Choa and told her to stay and assist with the cleanup. He also told her to deliver his message to the principal that he would be taking Itsuki with him. On the other hand, Itsuki's friend patted Itsuki's hand, saying there was no way Saya would be angry after he won. He guessed that Saya was probably scared of falling behind Itsuki, so she might have gone to touch the monument instead. Itsuki lowered his gaze slightly and murmured that he hoped that was the case. Just then, a voice called out to him, asking if he was Tenma Itsuki. Itsuki turned and noticed someone approaching. Commander Nento, wearing a long cape, stood before him. Itsuki looked up at him in silence. People watching from a distance began whispering among themselves. They saw that Izumi Nento, a famous figure, was talking directly to Itsuki. Some wondered if he intended to take Itsuki as a student. Others doubted it, saying the only person Commander Nento had ever accepted as a student was Tiwajin, humanity's strongest. They insisted that no matter how strong Itsuki seemed, something like that wouldn't happen. Itsuki's friend stepped away nervously and said he would go look for Saya. Commander Nento then looked down at Itsuki and spoke calmly. He told Itsuki that he was quite special. Itsuki looked at Commander Nento and repeated the word softly, asking what he meant by calling him special. Commander Nento observed Utsuki closely and saw dark energy gathering around Utsuki. He told Utsuki that his heart seemed filled with anger and hatred. Utsuki stood in the darkness, a glowing light shining across his eyes. Commander Nento then stepped forward and said that he wanted to know the reason behind that hatred. Itsuki finally spoke, explaining that 10 years ago, his parents were killed by disaster beasts while trying to protect him. A scene from his childhood flashed before his eyes, his younger self crying helplessly as danger closed in. He remembered how he had nearly been killed as well, but an awakened appeared at the last moment and saved him. The powerful figure struck the beast right in front of the frightened Itsuki. Itsuki told Commander Nento that, right before his eyes, he had watched his mother die. A glowing blue flame slowly consumed his mother's body. Even as half her face vanished into bone and ash, she smiled gently at Itsuki and told him that he must walk the rest of the path on his own. Young Itsuki stared at her with trembling eyes, unable to understand. His voice cracked as he cried out for his mother. Anger raged inside him as he looked at the beast. Words echoed in his mind, reminding him that both his mother and father had died because of beings like this. Tears streamed down his face as he shouted in denial. Before him, a towering monstrous figure rose from the darkness, an enormous being surrounded by raging purple flames. Its shadow loomed over Itsuki as he realized the horrifying truth. The creature before him was the root of all evil. Shaking with rage, Itsuki glared upward. His eyes burned red as hatred filled his heart. On that day, he swore a vow. He would kill that demon, and every last creature of its kind. In the present, Itsuki clenched his jaw, a tear slipping down his cheek as he shouted that he would kill all of its kind. Commander Nento looked at him and commented that even with a heart consumed by hatred, Itsuki still shed tears. Itsuki raised a hand to his face and explained calmly. Ever since he witnessed the tragedy of his mother's death, his left eye had stopped producing tears, but his right eye had begun crying on its own. Thanks to that, he said, he never forgot his hatred for the disaster beasts. Commander Nento then asked if Itsuki would become his student. He promised to get him into the Salvation League and help him gain the immense power needed to take revenge on the disaster beasts. Itsuki repeated the words quietly, asking what the Salvation League was. Commander Nento then explained. He told Itsuki that to counter disaster beasts more efficiently and scientifically, the governments of the 5 continents had gathered strong awakened from around the world and created an official organization. The members of this organization were called saviors. He continued, saying that saviors were provided with resources such as dedicated training grounds and powerful weapons. They were also guaranteed high compensation. Even trainee saviors received 10,000 gold per month. Itsuki listened in surprise, realizing that 10,000 gold was enough to buy a car. Commander Nento then warned that such generous treatment was not given for free. Saviors were expected to constantly fight disaster beasts on the front lines and protect people's safety. Itsuki stood shirtless, his expression calm as he spoke. He said that he did not care about high pay or special resources. What mattered most to him was something else. Determination filled his eyes. His gaze sharpened as he clenched his fist. He declared that what mattered most was fighting disaster beasts on the front lines. With unwavering resolve, he announced that he wanted to become a savior as well. Commander Nento then explained the process. He said that the Salvation League held an exam every February, known as the National Salvation League Tournament, with more than 10,000 participants. Each contestant earned points based on performance, but only those who ranked within the top 100 were allowed to become saviors. Hearing this, Itsuki asked what the highest record in history was. Commander Nento told Itsuki that it would not be very useful as a reference. He explained calmly that the record was 115,000 points, set by Tiwajin 11 years ago. He added that passing required only 30% of that score, while securing first place required at least 50%. Itsuki silently recalled the name Tiwajin, the strongest awakened, known as the light of humanity, the one Rakuru had mentioned. Commander Nento told Itsuki that Jin was special, and that comparing himself to Jin would only bring despair. But even so, Itsuki should still have confidence, because he believed Itsuki could one day stand shoulder to shoulder with Jin. Itsuki stood shirtless on the training ground, his expression steady. With unwavering determination, he declared that he would surpass Tiwajin. Hearing those words, Commander Nento's eyes widened inside the helmet, reacting with surprise. He remembered something from the past, a time when he had stood with Tiwajin, and told him that he had become incredibly popular. The younger generation was trying to follow in his footsteps, but Tiwajin warned that following alone would never win the war against the disaster beasts. Someday someone would surpass him, just as a new sunrise replaces the setting sun. Tiwajin said that he looked forward to that day. Seeing Itsuki's resolve, Commander Nento thought that the sunrise Tiwajin had been waiting for had finally appeared. A few hours later, Commander Nento took Itsuki to another place. There, when Itsuki saw the massive dome-shaped structure rising in the distance, glowing under the sky, he asked quietly what it was. Commander Nento explained that these monuments acted as passages connecting the human world to the world of disaster beasts. He said that if the beasts were killed but the monuments were left untouched, new beasts would simply appear again. He pointed at the massive dome-shaped building, and explained that this facility was created to isolate monuments that couldn't be destroyed. Awakened individuals periodically entered it to sweep out the disaster beasts that emerged. This kept the danger under control, and also served as training. Itsuki looked at the building and asked if it was a training facility. Commander Nento, standing beside him, confirmed it, saying they called these places stages. He explained that the number and strength of the beasts inside couldn't be controlled, making it extremely dangerous. Commander Nento told Itsuki that the beasts in this specific stage were especially strong. Among all rookie-level stages, this one had the highest mortality rate. Because of that, people called it the rookie's graveyard. He told Itsuki that when Jin was still a rookie, he had cleared this deadly stage in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Commander Nento turned to Itsuki and said that if Itsuki truly intended to surpass Jin, then 3 minutes would be his limit. As Itsuki walked toward the giant facility, Commander Nento told him that if he could clear the stage within 3 minutes, he would accept him as his student. Hearing that, Itsuki's eyes sharpened with determination. He wanted to surpass Jin and become Commander Nento's student. People in the lobby turned their heads when they saw a familiar figure. Someone pointed and said that Mr. Izumi had arrived. Another person noticed Itsuki walking beside him and asked if that was the rumored rookie. The crowd stared in surprise, whispering that there was no way a rookie could walk next to Mr. Izumi unless he was an awakened on Tiwajin's level. Itsuki looked around quietly and wondered to himself if this person was really that famous. Thinking that, he walked toward the stage entrance and saw the display showing the disaster beast level inside, level 10. He noted that it was only 2 levels higher than the skeleton soldier he had faced earlier, and wondered how strong that really was. But what surprised him more was that even though several people were gathered nearby, none of them seemed prepared to enter the stage. He wondered why that was. Someone nearby muttered that the rookie looked way too confident, and assumed that a high-level awakened must be accompanying him. Another wished they could be taken along too, while someone else joked that the rookie probably came just to flirt with the receptionist, saying that with a decent face, he was getting cocky. At the counter, the receptionist approached him with a polite smile. She asked if he wanted to enter the stage and how many challengers there would be. He calmly replied that it would be just him. Hearing that, the area fell silent as the receptionist stared at him across the counter. Suddenly, she leaned forward and yelled angrily. She told him not to make unfunny jokes and asked if he was messing around. She warned him that if he was just there to hit on her, it was pointless. She explained that even if the place was an artificial stage, it was still dangerous. People could get hurt or even die. Itsuki stared at her in confusion, wondering what she was even talking about. Behind them, several people watching from afar started laughing. They joked that he really was there to hit on her. Some said that there were always people who treated the stages like dating spots, and those people usually got scolded and went home. Itsuki looked at the receptionist calmly and explained the misunderstanding. He told her he had absolutely no interest in her. He said he only came to challenge the stage, nothing more. But the receptionist sighed and rubbed her forehead. She told him he didn't have to act tough just because he was embarrassed. She even said she would give him her contact information so he should just go home. But Itsuki's expression darkened. A shadow fell over his face. He told her not to make him repeat himself. He didn't care about her contact information at all. He only wanted her to let him enter the stage. Hearing that, the receptionist reluctantly agreed, and told him not to blame her if he died. She held out a metal bracelet with a nervous expression, clearly shaken. Seeing that, Itsuki muttered that she should have just given permission from the beginning, instead of making him repeat himself. The people watching from behind whispered among themselves. One man called Itsuki an idiot, saying he could have gotten her contact information but chose to act tough instead. Another pointed out that a level 0 rookie challenging a level 10 stage was basically suicide. They guessed he would run out in less than a minute. Someone else noticed how confident he looked and wondered if he might succeed since he also had a special grade gift. But another person reminded everyone that for awakened people, gifts were just bonuses. The most important thing was level. No matter how special the gift was, it meant nothing if the level was low. On the other hand, standing in front of the gate, Itsuki checked his bracelet. He said that his personal information was registered on it, so scanning it would let him enter. A glowing screen appeared above his hand, confirming, "Entry by awakened Tenma Itsuki has been approved." Itsuki stretched his hands forward and took a breath. He reminded himself that the promise was within 3 minutes. Then he said it was time to begin. A bright digital timer appeared, showing 001 in green numbers. And just as the gate opened, Itsuki moved with explosive speed. Red energy surrounded his body as he dashed forward, his eyes glowing sharply. He looked around and noticed the vast area. He thought that the interior space was much bigger than he expected. As he ran across the grassy field toward a tall black tower, he told himself that it was his first time entering a stage, even if it was an artificial one. Suddenly, Itsuki noticed a creature rush in, and said that it was coming. That creature jumped toward him. It was a wooden monster from the Kodama tribe. A blue window appeared beside it, showing its information. Kodama Num 1307. From Kodama tribe. Level 4. Gift none. Attack 49, Agility 48, Defense 53, Magic 24, Total 174. Seeing it coming, black spikes formed on Itsuki's hand. In the next moment, he slashed downward with overwhelming force. A sharp strike of energy cut through the target as he launched his attack. Itsuki stood calmly with the massive black spike axe hand. He smiled and remarked that an axe was always the best tool for trees. He then asked the remaining monsters how it felt to see their comrade cut in half. Dozens of Kodama creatures rushed at him. He stood tall and called them rotten trees. Outside, Choha spoke to her father, Commander Nento. She asked why, out of so many rookie stages, he had made the newcomer enter this one specifically. Commander Nento answered that Utsuki claimed he would surpass Jin, so he simply brought him to the same stage Jin first challenged. Hearing that, Choha frowned and said that surpassing Jin was impossible unless someone stepped outside the bounds of humanity. Hearing that, Commander Nento asked Choha if she believed Jin had already transcended humanity. Choha recalled the time she met Jin for the first time. She had once thought Jin was kind and approachable. Then she saw Jin instantly kill a level 97 disaster beast. She recalled that Jin's eyes during that fight were different. She remembered those eyes clearly. Cold, solitary, and transcendent. She felt that they didn't seem human at all. She described Jin's gaze, saying his eyes were like the eyes of a god. Hearing that, Commander Nento told Choha that Itsuki also had potential comparable to Jin. But at the moment, he was nothing more than an unpolished gemstone. He added that if Jin could be compared to a godlike existence who saved people, then Itsuki was the opposite. A demon consumed by hatred. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Itsuki stood among the fallen wooden beasts. He stated that Overmamizus wouldn't even activate against disaster beasts of this level. Just then, a dark silhouette appeared behind him, its eyes glowing red. His own eye glowed the same way as the shadow towered over him. In the next moment, his body moved at extreme speed, cutting through the enemies with a sharp motion. Itsuki stood before the fallen creature and looked down calmly. He asked if that was the end. He examined the broken body, and wondered if level 10 disaster beasts were only this strong. But then he thought that if that were true, this place wouldn't be called the Rookie's Graveyard. There had to be something else. Just then, a blue system window appeared before him. It displayed B-rank skill, self-regeneration detected. Over-mimesis activated. Another window followed. Analysis started. Then a second one. Analysis progress 5%. Itsuki turned as a sudden sound caught his attention. His expression shifted slightly. That level 10 disaster beast rose again behind him, its entire form twisting upward with glowing green eyes. Its long vine-like limbs burst outward and lunged at him. Itsuki braced himself, thinking in surprise that he had cut off half its head, yet it had regenerated. The moment the towering monster regenerated, Itsuki narrowed his eyes and muttered that he knew things wouldn't be straightforward. A glowing blue system window appeared in front of him, revealing the creature's details. It identified the monster as regenerated Kodama Sum 520 of the Kodama tribe, a level 10 beast with a grade 2 gift. Its defense had dropped by 50%, but its self-healing ability had greatly increased. Another blue window listed its stats clearly. Attack, 110, Agility 100, Defense 60, Magic 180, total 450. As the creature's roots and branches whipped wildly, Itsuki tightened his fist. A system alert flashed. Black wall activated. The next second, his hand was covered by black spikes cutting through the roots. Itsuki jumped at the monster. While dodging the monster's attacks, he quickly analyzed the situation. He realized the beast couldn't regenerate if he damaged it fast enough. He told himself that he had to deal massive damage in a short amount of time. The analysis window appeared beside him. Itsuki smashed forward with his armored arm, splitting through the Kodama's defenses as sparks and debris burst around them. His eyes glowed red as he moved like a shadow, slicing through the forest of wooden limbs. Each step sent shockwaves across the ground, and each strike pushed the progress window higher. Itsuki surged forward again, his blade-like arm shining with a cold blue light. Then he shot upward before crashing down like a falling spear, splitting the monster's giant body in half. Light from his attack cut straight through the Kodama, illuminating the entire battlefield. The towering creature's body split down the middle, a glowing crack running from its head to its torso. Its golden eyes shone through the gaps as its massive frame began to fracture. Itsuki watched with sharp red eyes, a grin forming on his face. He said he wasn't done yet. He said he would mince the creature completely so it wouldn't regenerate. In the next moment, he raised both arms. A blinding vertical slash of light tore downward, cutting the giant monster clean in half. Cuts spread across the creature's body, and the wooden shell shattered into countless pieces. The fragments scattered through the air, glowing faintly before breaking apart completely. As the dust settled, Itsuki lowered his arm and exhaled. He said this should be enough. He added that using Black Wall for so long was draining his magic, but before he could rest, vines and roots twisted together again in front of him. That wooden creature's form surged upward with glowing yellow eyes, rising from the remains and preparing to attack. The glowing display in front of Itsuki showed 60%, but the fight still raged on. Wooden tendrils whipped toward Itsuki as he moved between them with sharp, fluid steps. He glanced back with an annoyed expression, thinking that even after all of this, the monster still refused to die. He quietly muttered that it was becoming a real pain. The attacks continued to strike from every angle. As he dodged, he noticed something important. Every time the monster regenerated, Over-Mimes's analysis speed increased. His eyes narrowed. That meant the longer this continued, the faster the analysis would complete. He realized he needed a new approach. He decided to cancel Black Wall to conserve his remaining magic, and instead rely on Thunderbreaker to avoid the attacks while keeping his distance. Continuing this pattern until the analysis finished would be the winning strategy, but there was a problem. He didn't have much time left before the 3-minute limit ran out. Lightning crackled across his arm as the display climbed to 75%. Determination hardened his expression. He activated Thunderbreaker and Black Wall at the same time, pushing his offense to the extreme while forcing the monster to repeatedly regenerate. Doing so, he thought, would increase the analysis speed even further. Power surged around him, arcs of lightning dancing across his arm as he charged forward with a cold, focused expression. The creature's wooden body split down the middle, its golden eyes glowing through the cracks. Electric sparks flashed violently as he fought. If Over-Mimes failed when his magic hit 0, he knew he would die right there. The percentage rose to 80%, then 85%, as he forced his body forward through the storm of wooden strikes. He told himself that if he died now, then everything he'd done would amount to nothing. Lightning gathered in his arm as he unleashed another powerful strike. But right before hitting the monster's head, his magic power hit 0. Finally, his body staggered. Blood dripped from his mouth. He lowered his head and quietly muttered, "Damn it." Itsuki stood pierced by sharp wooden spikes, his body battered and barely holding on. He lowered his head as white steam drifted off his wounds. He quietly admitted that his magic seemed to have finally run out. Then a glowing window appeared beside him, showing 99%. Seeing that, Itsuki's expression sharpened. Blood streamed down his chin as his eyes glowed coldly. He declared that, just as he thought, Over-mimesis did not need magic to activate. With a strained smile, he announced that this match was his win. The window in front of him then showed. Analysis progress, 100%. A bright lotus-shaped energy began expanding around him, glowing blue and cracking the wooden spikes. A system window appeared, saying self-regeneration analysis complete. Lotus burst acquired. The lotus continued to bloom outward, pushing everything away as more spikes shattered. Another window displayed the details. Lotus burst, LV2. Active effect consumes magic to deal explosive damage to enemies within a 5-meter diameter. Power scales with magic consumption. Passive effect. Each time Lotus Burst defeats a living creature of level 1 or higher, all skill ranges increase by +1%. The Lotus opened fully. A pink glow surrounded Itsuki as his wounds rapidly healed. Another window appeared. Lotus Burst, LV2, acquired. All stats +20. Remove all debuffs and fully heal injuries. The monster watching him narrowed its glowing yellow eyes. A final window appeared. Lotus Burst activated. Itsuki brought his hands together and clapped. A burst of force erupted instantly, followed by a roaring explosion of flames that engulfed everything in front of him. A blazing wave swept outward, and the monster's shadow shot through the smoke and sparks. When the flames settled, he stood there with blood running down his cheek, his hands still extended from the technique he had just used. With a calm breath, he looked ahead and said that Lotus Burst wasn't bad. Smoke rose around the scorched crater at Itsuki's feet as he examined the destruction. He noted that using only a third of his magic produced this much power, and sweeping away weak disaster beasts would now be far easier. But he admitted he never expected Over-mimesis to restore magic that had already reached 0. As he stepped forward, something on the ground caught his attention. He stopped, staring at a glowing green crystal beside him, and quietly asked what it was. Meanwhile, outside, the receptionist stared anxiously at the bright red screen. She said that almost 3 minutes had passed since the rookie Itsuki went inside, yet there was still no sign of him coming out. She pointed at the display, where the status window showed. Challenge in progress. Stage level 10. Challenger Tenma. Itsuki. Time used 2 minutes 09 seconds. Seeing this, she nervously added that they should call the rescue team quickly. Choa adjusted her glasses and spoke calmly. She said she didn't think Itsuki would lose to level 10 disaster beasts, but clearing the stage within 3 minutes seemed impossible. Her sentence trailed off as silence fell between them. But suddenly, a new message appeared on the large screen, saying new record achieved. Seeing that, everyone in the hall froze. Shocked whispers spread through the crowd. One woman stepped forward, staring at the green screen in disbelief, whispering, "No way." Choha widened her eyes. She asked aloud how Itsuki managed to clear it, unable to believe what she was seeing, and the most shocking thing was that even 3 minutes hadn't passed. A final notification flashed brightly on the monitor. Challenge success. Stage level 10. Challenger Tenma Itsuki. Time used 2 minutes 14 seconds. Stage clear record updated. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the unbelievable result. The leaderboard screen displayed the results. It showed first place belonging to Tenma Itsuki, with a clear time of 2 minutes 14 seconds. Second place belonged to Tiwajin, who cleared it in 3 minutes 14 seconds. Third place was Hiton Sho, with a time of 7 minutes 17 seconds. Just then, Itsuki came out of the gate, his clothes torn and stained with green liquid. Around him, people reacted in shock. One person exclaimed that Itsuki had really survived, asking whether the green liquid on him was disaster beast blood. Another shouted that Itsuki was a full minute faster than Tiwajin. Someone else pointed out that the beasts inside were level 10 disaster beasts, and couldn't understand how a level 0 rookie managed it. Another voice added that there was no way a level 0 rookie should have survived. As Itsuki stepped forward, someone began to speak, saying Mr. Izumi was coming. Izumi Nento turned toward Itsuki, who asked him if he could now officially receive Commander Nento's guidance. Itsuki looked at him with a faint smile, and addressed him as teacher. Commander Nento responded with pride, saying that Itsuki had done well, just as he expected from his student. Standing nearby, Choha watched quietly. She wondered if her father was happy, saying she hadn't seen this expression from him in a long time. In the crowd, people continued whispering. One person shouted in disbelief that Itsuki was actually Izumi Nento's student. Another said it was no wonder he could break Tiwajin's record. But someone else added that even if he truly was Izumi's student, as long as his level didn't increase, there would be no room for growth. Just then, the receptionist came forward nervously with a decorated box in her hands. She explained that it was a gift for breaking the record, and asked Itsuki to accept it. Her expression softened as she apologized for the rude things she had said earlier. Itsuki looked surprised as he received the box, asking if he truly got something for his achievement. He said that it was fine, because a level 0 rookie challenging a stage like that really did seem reckless. He added that he was a complete stranger to them, and it wouldn't have mattered to anyone if he had died, but since she tried to stop him, it proved she was worried. Hearing that, the receptionist blushed deeply. She stuttered as she insisted it wasn't like that. Itsuki simply thanked her, which only made her blush even harder. Not far away, Choha called out, telling Itsuki that she was leaving and not to lag behind. She tightened her glasses, annoyed, and warned him not to get cocky just because he had become her father's student. Itsuki straightened up and replied quickly, agreeing. Then Commander Nento, beside Choha, studied Itsuki and commented that a stage of this level now seemed too easy for him. He suggested raising the difficulty. He continued, saying that Itsuki should be able to challenge advanced stages now. Itsuki looked at him surprised and repeated the words, advanced stages. As the three of them walked together across the rooftop at sunset, Commander Nento continued explaining. He said that a disaster beast's strength was not determined by level alone. The most important factor, he stated, was something else entirely. He explained that the true deciding factor was species. Choa explained that species without intelligence, which moved only by instinct, were usually easy to deal with, but some species possessed intelligence equal to or greater than humans. She explained that such species were far more troublesome than ordinary disaster beasts. Choka continued. She said that awakened beings and disaster beasts were essentially the same type of creature, but with one difference. Only humans were said to possess jobs. Because of that, stats differed depending on species. She went on to explain that advanced stages contained these powerful species, or intelligent disaster beasts. Their difficulty was several times higher than normal stages. Most of the northern continent's advanced stages were located in North District 4, and she told Itsuki that this would be his next destination. She asked whether Itsuki had any other questions. Hearing her explanation, Itsuki suddenly remembered the two beasts he had defeated earlier. He thought about them in silence. They hadn't shown any signs of intelligence, and they hadn't screamed even when attacked. He wondered if that meant they didn't even have pain receptors. Itsuki's eyes glowed with sharp intensity as he looked up. He asked Choha whether intelligent disaster beasts had pain receptors or not. Hearing that, Choha suddenly felt a chilling pressure behind her. As she turned, her expression stiffened. She wondered what this terrifying aura was, and what Itsuki was thinking. Behind them, a group of people gathered and whispered among themselves. One of them asked if anyone had heard that Mr. Izumi planned to make Itsuki challenge an advanced stage. Another replied that Itsuki, who broke Teiwajin's record, should be fine. But one man explained that advanced stages were completely different from normal ones. More importantly, almost all the stages in North District 4 were under a single man's control. He said that every awakened person who had entered an advanced stage there had gone missing, and rumors claimed that the man had killed them. Someone immediately asked if he meant Kinoshita Reiji. Another man began to speak disrespectfully, asking who Kinoshita Reiji even was, and suggesting he acted like a king. His friend quickly covered his mouth, hushing him in panic. He warned him that he would be killed too if that man heard him. After all, he said, that man was the son of the North District 4 governor, Kinoshita Reiji. The scene shifted to a luxurious room. A young man lounged confidently while servants stood around him. He was the infamous Kinoshita Reiji. A subordinate asked him when he would be departing. Reiji smirked as he answered. He said that all the stages in North District 4 were under his control, so he would go whenever he wanted. To him, waiting in line was something only commoners did. He lifted his glass with a satisfied smile. After leaving from there, Itsuki opened the small ornate box, revealing a shining stone resting on a red cushion. As the three of them sat together beneath the shade of the trees, Itsuki looked at the stone and muttered that it was from that time. Hearing that, Commander Nento beside him asked if he had seen a karma stone before. Itsuki nodded and explained calmly. After defeating the disaster beasts inside the stage, something identical to this had dropped. But then he paused and added that there was a slight difference. He took out a green crystal. He stared at the one in his hand and said the color was green, but something about it wasn't the same. Hearing that, Choha's eyes widened in shock. She exclaimed that it was an intermediate karma stone appearing inside a beginner stage. She stepped closer, adjusting her glasses to take a look. Itsuki asked what exactly a karma stone was. Choha turned to him and began explaining. She reminded him that he had been a rookie. She said karma stones were also called experience stones. She explained that when a disaster beast or an awakened being died, karma or an invisible energy similar to experience points came from their corpse. Absorbing this energy increased a person's level. In other words, a karma stone was an object that contained karma. A figure glowing with energy appeared in her explanation, demonstrating how someone could use a karma stone to absorb the karma inside. She continued, saying that karma stones didn't occur naturally, which made the situation strange. Choha wondered aloud why such a stone had appeared in that stage. Beside her, Commander Nento quietly said it was probably because of Itsuki's gift. Hearing this, both Itsuki and Choha looked confused and asked again about the so-called gift. Commander Nento explained that normally, the karma of a defeated enemy would be absorbed by the one who killed them. Yet even though Tenma had defeated 2 disaster beasts, he never leveled up. That meant the karma had not been absorbed. He added that manifested karma never disappeared without a reason. He continued, saying that if his speculation was correct, the karma of the disaster beast that attacked the school had been absorbed by the awakened individuals present, meaning the people standing there. He explained further that a stage was an enclosed space. Because Tenma was unable to absorb the generated karma and there was no other recipient inside, the leftover karma clumped together and formed a karma stone. Hearing this, Choha looked startled. She asked how Itsuki's stats increased if he truly could not level up. Hearing that, Commander Nento suddenly stood up and reminded Choha that an awakened person's gift was top secret and could not be disclosed. Startled, she apologized immediately. Commander Nento then turned back to Itsuki. He told him that he could choose whether to keep the karma stone or sell it. He added that he would be leaving soon for a commander-in-chief meeting of the 5 continents, and that during his absence, Choha would look after him. Before departing, he said there were several things he wanted him to remember. Commander Nento spoke calmly as he listed out the rules. He told Itsuki to keep their relationship confidential, then added the second rule, never disclose his gift to others. The third rule followed. Itsuki had to clear at least 6 advanced stages before the teacher returned. A fourth instruction echoed after that. He told Itsuki to do what he believed was right without hesitation, promising that no matter what happened, he would be behind him. Hearing this, Itsuki smiled with determination and answered, "Yes, teacher." At the same time, at North District 4, Flaming Rock Execution Ground, groups of students argued with suited guards blocking an entrance. One of them shouted that they had arrived first and demanded to be let in. The guards refused. They said the stage had been reserved by the Kinoshita family's son, telling everyone to go home. The students grew angry. One yelled that having money didn't give someone the right to do whatever he wanted. Another pointed out that the privileged boy wasn't even there yet, and insisted they should be allowed in first. Their frustration rose. One threatened to report the situation to the awakened guild, saying he didn't care who the rich kid was. But before he could finish, a dark figure with glowing red eyes appeared behind them, cutting off their complaints. In the next moment, a powerful attack blasted forward. The students were thrown aside as a muscular fighter struck with overwhelming force, scattering them in an instant. Another student rushed forward, attacking the muscular man. A sharp white arc cut through the air as it struck with full power. But the attack landed directly on the muscular man's body and bounced back, sending shockwaves bursting outward. The impact echoed loudly across the ground. The blonde student watching from behind stared in horror. He muttered in disbelief that his B-rank skill, Earth Spine, had not worked at all. The muscular man turned, his face shifting into a terrifying form with glowing red eyes and metallic markings. He shouted that the attack didn't hurt or even itch. The blonde student trembled. He thought to himself that Earth Spine was a technique meant to pierce anything. He wondered if the man in front of him was actually a monster. Before the student could react, the monstrous man lunged forward and grabbed him, his red aura flaring violently as he towered over the frightened student. The muscular man smacked the blonde student's head. The blonde student slammed down violently. Blood burst from his mouth as his eyes rolled back, his body twisting from the impact. Around him, the spectators reacted in shock. They whispered that a level 7 and a level 8 student had been killed instantly without being able to defend themselves. They said the big guy was far too strong. Someone identified him as Oga Takuru, one of Kinushita Reiji's 4 pillars, and a level 12 gold elementalist. Hearing that, the crowd understood why things had turned out this way. Oka held one of the defeated students by the neck and warned everyone. He said he would not forgive anyone who tried to enter the stage without Reiji's permission. If anyone resisted, he would treat them the same way he treated the 2 lying on the ground. The other students watched nervously as Takuru lifted the struggling blonde student off the floor. The blue-haired student remained unconscious beside him. Oga shouted that nobody should think about helping them. The group of bodyguards in suits stood nearby, laughing. One of them told Oga not to go too far because the trash was watching. Another warned that if he kept beating weak students, the teacher would hear about it. Their laughter echoed through the area. Oga only scoffed. He tossed the blonde student aside with a flick of his arm, showing no concern at all. The injured blonde student collapsed forward, but before he could hit the ground, Itsuki caught him. Blood dripped from the student's nose as his body went limp in Itsuki's hands. Around them, the other students whispered in shock. One of them asked who the newcomer was and wondered why he didn't listen when they told him not to interfere. Another panicked voice said that a level 0 person was definitely going to die. Someone else stared at Choa and muttered that the beauty beside him looked familiar. Not far away, Oga glared at Itsuki. He shouted that nobody was allowed to pass without Reiji's permission. He warned that if Itsuki didn't want to end up like the unconscious student, he should just go home quietly. Hearing that, Itsuki lowered his head slightly. He calmly said that he understood. He wouldn't be able to enter the stage unless he defeated this man. Beside him, Choa raised her hand, saying she would contact the North District 4 administrator because this kind of behavior couldn't be allowed. But Itsuki stopped her. His eyes glowed bright blue as he said it wasn't necessary. He repeated what his teacher had told him, that he should do what he believed was right without hesitation. He then turned to Choha again and spoke plainly. He said he would leave the treatment of the injured students to her. Then he turned to Oga. As Itsuki stepped forward, a thought appeared in Oga's mind as he stared at him. He wondered who this man was. A status window floated beside Itsuki, showing his information. Tenmatsuki, human, level 0, fixed, job, order breaker, gift, special grade, skill, undisclosed, status, undisclosed. Seeing this, even though Itsuki was level 0, he stood firmly without any fear. Oga wondered if Itsuki had a rare job that allowed him to stay calm like this. Oga suddenly felt something strange. Even with his higher level, he felt pressured. He told himself that rare job or not, he was 12 levels ahead. The stat difference shouldn't be something Itsuki could bridge. Another window appeared beside Oga, showing his status. Oga Takeru, human level 12, job, elementalist, gift grade 2. After metallization, defense plus 50% in stationary state. Skill, metallization, status, attack, 110, agility, 100, defense 250, magic 145, total 605. As Oga stared, his expression changed. His eyes widened, and in the reflection of his pupil, he suddenly saw Itsuki rushing toward him at incredible speed. In the next moment, Itsuki's fist collided with Oga's body with overwhelming force, sending a shock through the frame as the impact landed cleanly. The crowd watched in shock as 2 students stared ahead, sweat running down their faces. One of them exclaimed that the speed was unreal and wondered if Itsuki was really level 0. The other admitted that even though he was level 8, he wasn't sure he could keep up with that kind of movement, but as the dust settled, it was revealed that Itsuki's fist had struck Oga's metal head, sending steam rising from the impact. Oga had blocked the blow with his metallization skill, his face hidden behind the shining metal layer. Seeing this, Itsuki pulled back slightly, his eyes narrowing as he realized the strike had been stopped. Oga then raised both hands, his arms transforming completely into polished metal. He looked down at Itsuki and commented calmly that the speed was good. Then he moved and lunged forward with overwhelming force, shouting that Itsuki's attack still lacked power. The floor shattered beneath him as debris exploded outward. Itsuki braced himself, analyzing the situation in silence. He thought about what it would take to successfully land a surprise attack on an enemy above level 10. As his body blurred into motion again, he concluded that he needed to further increase his agility using Thunderbreaker. Just then, a system window appeared. The display showed Tenma Itsuki's status. It listed him as a human at level 0, with a fixed job called Order Breaker. Nirvana Gift, a special grade ability. His Nirvana skills were shown. Over Mimesis, Zoo Rank, Thunderbreaker, Love Library Run. Black Wall Love Library 2, on Lotus Burst, Love Library 2. All of his stats, attack, agility, defense and magic, were listed as 250, totaling 1000. Then another screen appeared. It detected a C-rank skill, metallization. At the same moment, overmimesis activated and began analysis. The progress bar rose to 1%. Itsuki crouched on the ground, watching his opponent. He wondered if the threat level was high enough for overmimesis to activate. He decided he needed to get serious. A new screen showed the analysis increasing to 5%. Itsuki observed Oga's metal-covered body in front of him and thought that normal attacks couldn't break through the metallized areas. He concluded he would have to aim for the parts that were still flesh. His foot slid across the ground as he accelerated. But Oga looked at him and laughed, calling him a weakling with no power or speed as he raised his shining, hardened arms to counter. Itsuki tightened his gaze as he thought to himself that his opponent had let his guard down, believing that the speed Itsuki had shown earlier was his maximum. His expression remained calm and focused, a faint glow of blue lightning beginning to trace along his body. Lightning wrapped around him as he prepared to accelerate. He readied his fist, and in that moment, he decided to increase his speed using Thunderbreaker. Across from him, Oga widened his eyes in shock when he saw the lightning erupt. He shouted in disbelief, wondering how Itsuki possessed the lightning element. Before he could react, Itsuki surged forward, lightning crackling violently around him. Itsuki declared that he wouldn't give him time to metallize. Itsuki continuously attacked Oga. Dozens of blue screens appeared around them, showing percentages climbing. 25%, 59%, 66%, tracking the rapid progress of the attack. Spectators from the side watched in shock. One man asked why Itsuki could use skills from another job. Another said the speed was too fast for his eyes to follow. Someone else muttered that the level 0 boy might actually defeat Oga. Oga himself struggled to react. Sweat ran down his face as he realized he had no time to metallize. He gritted his teeth, questioning how a level 0 could move so fast. Desperation grew inside him as he admitted that, at this rate, he would lose. Electricity wrapped around his entire body, trapping him. He couldn't even scream. Panic overtook him as he shouted in his thoughts for the others to stop watching and help him. As the lightning surged around him, Oga clenched his teeth. His expression twisted in desperation, and he thought to himself that he had no choice left. He would have to try that technique. With a loud shout, he suddenly tore off his shirt and released a burst of power. Waves of force exploded from his body as he activated his ultimate skill. Before Itsuki, Oga's entire body turned metallic from head to toe. Itsuki stared in shock, realizing that his opponent had managed to metallize his entire body at once. A system window flickered beside him, showing C-rank skill, metallization, analysis progress 88%. Oga glared down at Itsuki with glowing eyes. He said he was grateful he had never managed to metallize his entire body before, but Itsuki had pushed him enough to finally achieve it. He explained that metallized areas increased his defense by 50%, and his personal gift added another 50% whenever he remained still. With both effects combined, his current defense exceeded 500. His face twisted into a cruel grin as he looked at Itsuki. He said that he had originally planned to cut Itsuki in half, but as thanks for helping him complete his new skill, he would at least allow Itsuki to die easily. Watching from the sidelines, the other trainees were stunned. One of them exclaimed that a defense over 500 at level 12 was impossible to break. Another admitted that they had thought the level 0 newcomer would win, but the opponent was too much of a monster. Suddenly, a glowing blue aura wrapped around Itsuki. He looked ahead with calm eyes and said that if his guess was right, a full-body metal transformation required a large amount of magic. The screen beside him showed the analysis reaching 98%. Itsuki continued, saying that if Oga had used most of his stat points on defense, then his magic shouldn't be very high. The percentage rose again, reaching 99%. Across from him, Oga growled and denied it, calling Itsuki's reasoning nonsense. Even while refusing to believe it, he wondered if Itsuki was truly level 0, surprised by his sharp intuition. Itsuki kept his relaxed smile. He said he wouldn't bother using a boring tactic like draining Oga's magic down to 0. Instead, he declared he would finish the fight quickly. At that moment, the blue screen flashed. Analysis progress reached 100%. High above, a blue lotus-shaped aura began to bloom. Choha, watching, whispered that the lotus had appeared again, and realized that Itsuki was about to become even stronger. Others stared at the giant lotus forming around him. One man questioned if this lotus was really a level 0 skill. Another wondered how Itsuki planned to defeat Oga since it didn't look like an offensive technique. A notification window appeared. The analysis of the metallization skill was complete, and a new skill called Clear Orb had been acquired. Another window described the skill, Clear Orb Level 1. Active effect. It shoots a perfect sphere along a fixed path. The sphere travels at 1 meter per second and pierces through every enemy in its path while ignoring all defense. Passive effect. Every time an enemy with higher defense than the user is defeated with clear orb. Seeing that this new skill had defense ignored, Itsuki thought that if he hit with this, he could definitely deal damage. But the problem was flight speed. At 1 men/s, even ordinary people could dodge it, so timing was crucial. But then Itsuki thought that against that sandbag Oga, who wouldn't even move, he didn't even need to think about timing. Itsuki's eyes glowed blue as he looked at Oga and declared that Oga's prized absolute defense would be thoroughly smashed to pieces. Just then, a system window appeared displaying Clear or B, Believe or 1, acquired. All stats plus 10, remove all debuffs and fully heal injuries. Status. Attack went from 250 to 260, agility from 250 to 260, defense from 250 to 260, magic from 250 to 260, total stats from 1000 to 1040. The blue lotus petals opened as Itsuki stood in the middle, pointing his finger at Oga. Right above his finger, a small lotus flower appeared. As the lotus spun and bloomed, Itsuki told Oga to now try to dodge this. A system window displayed that Clear Orb has been activated. The students stared at the glowing sphere and whispered among themselves. One of them said he had never seen that skill before. Another explained that this must be the Order Breaker, the job known as the most mysterious among the four. Someone questioned whether a skill released by a level 0 could break through the defense of a level 12 specialist. Another pointed out the confident look on Itsuki's face, saying that the technique must be incredible. A glowing lotus-like shape opened, revealing a small black orb. The orb floated forward, shining as colors scattered around it. The onlookers watched silently as the orb drifted through the air. Some students stared in confusion. One boy complained, saying it was just a tiny ball. Another asked if they were being serious, and called it disappointing. Oga glared at the orb. He mocked the attack, saying that such a small sphere couldn't make him move or cancel his gift, calling it naive. He stepped forward confidently. He asked if this was Itsuki's trump card. Then, the orb continued floating toward him. With a mocking glare, Oga shouted that Itsuki was going to die pathetically. For a moment he remained certain of his victory, until his expression suddenly shifted. His eyes widened as the orb began to sink into the side of his metal-coated body. A faint crack appeared where it touched him. A heartbeat later, a violent burst of blood exploded from the wound. Oga screamed in agony as the clear orb tore through his arm, ripping it apart in a single clean line. He collapsed to the ground, clutching the bleeding stump, shouting desperately about his arm. Itsuki walked toward him calmly. He told Oga that he had warned him to dodge. Itsuki said that because Oga was human, he had only aimed for the arm. If he had been a disaster beast, the attack would have been aimed at the neck. Itsuki then looked at Oga's men standing frozen nearby. He ordered them to stop staring and take Oga to a hospital, asking if they couldn't hear him. When no one moved, he turned back with cold eyes and repeated sharply that he was telling them to get lost. Immediately Oga was carried away by the guards, blood covering his back and dripping onto their suits. One guard looked shaken while another wiped sweat from his face. In the distance, the crowd began cheering. Choha smiled proudly as the students around her celebrated. Someone shouted that Itsuki won. Another yelled, "Well done," and others said it served Oga right. Immediately, 2 students rushed up to Itsuki. One asked if he wanted to team up with them, saying 3 people could clear the mission quickly. The other quickly insisted he should join their team instead, explaining that with only 2 members he would get more experience points. They argued again, asking if he planned to challenge the Flaming Rock execution ground with 3 people. They warned that all the disaster beasts inside had defense equal to Oga's. One of them added that their team had a healer, who could restore his magic and let him fire the orbs endlessly. Itsuki looked ahead calmly. He thought that beasts with defense equal to Oga's were perfect. He reminded himself that Clear Orb's flight speed increased each time he defeated an enemy with higher defense. He decided he would increase the orb's speed inside that stage. The 2 boys leaned forward eagerly, asking Itsuki to let them know which team he would choose. Itsuki lowered his gaze and spoke quietly. He said he was going alone. Around him, the others reacted in shock. One person shouted in disbelief that he was challenging a level 15 advanced stage by himself. Another complained that he had become overconfident just because he defeated Oga. Those 2 students walked away. One of them admitted that Itsuki was strong, but insisted there was a limit to arrogance. The other added that they must not meet his standards, and suggested they look for someone else instead. Choha stepped forward and spoke calmly. She explained that all the disaster beasts in this place had defenses similar to Oga's. She said she understood he had a way to defeat them, but questioned whether his magic would last long enough. Itsuki turned toward her with a small, confident smile and told her not to worry, he would be fine. Hearing that, Choa's face immediately reddened. She replied sharply that she wasn't worried. She said she only asked because her father would blame her if he died. Then she turned away, saying she would go treat the injured and that he could do as he pleased. Before she left, she adjusted her glasses and added one more warning. She explained that the Stone Tribe had no intelligence, but they moved in groups. She told him to be careful about his magic consumption. Itsuki stepped toward the glowing entrance device and raised his hand. A soft beep echoed through the air as the system confirmed him. A notification projected beside the door, stating that entry for the awakened Tenma Itsuki had been approved. Once inside, Itsuki looked ahead with sharp eyes. He muttered that there were more enemies than he had expected. Right in front of him, countless stone beasts filled the rocky canyon, their bodies made of thick boulders and glowing yellow eyes. The ground cracked under their weight as they charged. Itzquant watched them and noted that the disaster beasts in this advanced stage had levels and stats far higher than before. A blue system window appeared in front of him, showing the information of a stone statue from the Stone Tribe, level 9, with its gift converting all magic power into defense. As one of the stone beasts rushed toward him, Itsuki held out his glowing purple orb. He spoke calmly, saying he would test whether these enemies met the clear orb's passive conditions. The purple aura around the orb burst outward as he activated it. The clear orb shone brightly, its power swirling in layers of violet and blue light. The stone beast charged forward, its massive body bursting through the dust as Itsuki raised his hand. The purple orb floated above his palm, swirling with bright light as he aimed it at the incoming monster. The orb shot out instantly, tearing straight through the beast's rocky body. A large hole opened behind it, and Itsuki stepped through the fading purple glow as the system window appeared. The screen displayed the message, Stone Statue, Level 9 defeated. Another line followed, Clear Orb, flight speed increased by 100%. Itsuki watched the notification and nodded. He thought to himself that it was exactly as he expected. More stone beasts roared as they appeared in front of him, their yellow eyes shining from within the broken cliffside. Itsuki stood calmly among them, the purple light reflecting across his silhouette. Lightning began crackling around Itsuki's body, and his eyes glowed red. He looked ahead and said that these slow beasts with poor evasion were perfect prey for the clear orb. System windows continued to appear one after another. Stone Statue, Level 9 defeated. Clear orb flight speed increased by 100%. Pieces of broken stone scattered across the ground as the notifications filled the air. The glowing status window floated above Itsuki, showing magic 1 Tencel, 160 remaining. He stood on top of a mountain of shattered stone beasts. Looking down at the battlefield, he calmly calculated the situation. Using the clear orb once consumed 50 magic points, which meant he only had 2 uses left. Ahead of him, the ground trembled as 2 massive stone beasts charged straight toward him. He noted that the remaining enemies were 3, including a boss that still hadn't revealed itself. Seeing the 2 stone monsters rushing in at full force, he understood what he had to do. He thought that he needed to defeat 2 enemies at once with a single orb. Itsuki lowered his stance and gathered the purple energy swirling from the clear orb. With a powerful jump, Itsuki left the ground and shot upward. Then the beasts crashed with explosive force, shattering the rocky ground. As dust and stone fragments blasted outward, Itsuki leapt forward. Now, he said, moving straight through the debris. His eye glowed blood red as he pushed through the shockwave. A fierce grin formed on his face. Take this, he shouted, preparing the next strike. The purple orb shot downward with blinding speed, its light stretching across the sky as Itsuki hung in the air above it. Immediately, glowing system windows appeared one after another, displaying, Stone Statue, Lever 9, defeated. Clear orb flight speed increased by 100%. After the impact, Itsuki collapsed on the ground, panting heavily. Sweat dripped down his face as he lay flat on the rocky floor. He muttered that the exhaustion he felt right before his magic ran out was rough. He hoped he would someday get a magic recovery skill. He slowly sat up and looked at the glowing screen in front of him. He said that with the orb now flying at 5 meters per second, he could catch up to running enemies. The system window displayed the details of the skill. Clear Orb. Level 1. Active effect. Fires a perfect sphere with a fixed trajectory. The sphere flies at 5 meters and penetrates all enemies in its path, ignoring defense. Passive effect. Each time an enemy with higher defense than yourself is defeated with clear orb. Flight speed plus 100%. Current flight speed increase 500%. While he was checking the details, suddenly the ground shook, and a massive stone arm dropped toward him with a loud crash. Itsuki looked up in surprise as the enormous mass slammed into the earth, sending dust and rock exploding in every direction. A massive stone giant charged forward, its rocky body trembling with each step as dust exploded around it. A system window appeared, detecting a B-rank skill and revealing the monster's details. Giant Stone Man 28, Level 15. Stone Tribe, Grade 2. Gift converts all magic power into defense. Attack 239, Agility 60, Defense 478, Magic 0, Total 777. Itsuki looked up at the towering creature and gasped that it was huge. Lightning wrapped around his body as another window announced. Thunderbreaker activated. Agility plus 50%. Crackling with blue electricity, he sprinted toward the giant. As he dashed below the monster's massive frame, he wondered if he could defeat it with a single clear orb hit. He looked up at the stone giant's head and thought that maybe aiming for the head would work. Lightning trailed behind him as he climbed the monster's rocky body. He spotted a moment of opportunity and shot a clear orb at the monster's head. However, Itsuki soon realized something troubling. He told himself the orb was too small, and even if it penetrated, it wouldn't deal much damage. The massive stone giant swung its enormous arm, and the impact sent wind blasting through the air. Itsuki leaped upward, light and energy swirling around him as he tried to avoid the attack. His eyes widened when he realized he was stuck in the air. He clenched his teeth and thought that this was bad. He couldn't dodge while mid-air. A system window appeared as dark spikes wrapped around his arm. Black Wall activated just as the giant's blow landed. Itsuki smashed into the rocks with a violent explosion, kicking up dust and debris across the rocky ground. When the dust settled, Itsuki was wedged into a stone wall, breathing heavily. He muttered that this big guy was tougher than he expected. Another system window flickered in front of him. A B-rank skill, Gigantification, was detected. Overmimesis activated and began progressing at 1%. Seeing that, Itsuki looked up with a confident grin. Realizing the monster grew huge because of a skill, he said this would be easy. With one hand, he grabbed onto the giant's stone body and prepared for his next move. Meanwhile, outside, one of Kinoshita Reiji's men got the news of what had happened to Oga and froze in shock. Behind him, Kinoshita Reiji, dressed in a golden vest, sat calmly. He narrowed his eyes and warned his man not to make noise in front of him. The suit-wearing man bowed his head and apologized, saying it was just so unexpected. Kinoshita asked him what had happened. The man reported urgently that someone had defeated Oga and forced their way into the stage. Hearing that, Kinoshita clenched his teeth and broke the wineglass in his hand. He questioned what Oga was even doing. He reminded himself that Oga always bragged that no one below level 30 could break through his defense. He wondered if a level 30 or higher awakened had shown up. But his man quickly explained that with the recent surge in descending monuments, all awakened above level 30 were busy dealing with them and shouldn't have time to come here. He added that challengers at the Flaming Rock execution ground were mostly level 10 rookies. Hearing that, Kinoshita shouted that there was no way a level 10 could beat Oga. His guard behind him looked down with a serious expression and said that if he was given some time, he would gather detailed information. Kinoshita adjusted his vest and tie and said that gathering information was unnecessary. Even if the opponent was level 30, he himself was already here. He mentioned that the Flaming Rock execution ground was known for its stubborn disaster beasts that slowed down challengers. He added that if they headed there now, they would make it in time. However, his guard said that since the opponent's identity was unknown, they should still be cautious. Hearing that, Kinoshita's expression grew sharp. His glasses glowed as he told the guard that he had already said they were heading there now, and that he shouldn't have to repeat himself. The guard stiffened, sweating nervously, and replied with a quiet, "Yes." Kinoshita then threw his arm upward confidently, and declared that he would make them regret opposing the Kinoshita family. At the same time in the dungeon, blue energy lotus surged around Itsuki. A glowing screen appeared behind him showing 100%. Seeing that, Itsuki smirked and said that he no longer had to run around like a mouse anymore. He was standing on top of the massive stone beast, and a bright blue lotus had formed on the beast's forehead. At that moment, a system window opened in the air, announcing that the B-rank skill Gigantification had been fully analyzed. Itsuki looked at the window in surprise. He muttered that instead of gaining a new skill, something else had happened. He realized that Clear Orb had leveled up to level 2, and he checked for new effects. Another set of windows appeared, explaining the changes. Clear orb, level 2, now fires a perfect sphere at 5 meters per second, piercing all enemies while ignoring defense. New effect. After activation, the orb's size can now be adjusted by consuming additional magic power. Passive effect. Each time an enemy with higher defense than your own is defeated using Clear Orb, flight speed increases by 200%. Itsuki stared at the window, shocked that the passive effect had risen from a 100% to 200%. More importantly, he was excited that he could now control the size of the orb with magic. Power surged around him as the blue energy lotus opened. Itsuki said he wanted to try the new ability immediately, and glowing energy surrounded his body. Another window appeared, confirming the upgrade. Clear Orb Level 2 acquired. All stats plus 20. All debuffs removed. Injuries fully healed. A second window showed his new status. Attack went from 260 to 200 in. Agility from 260 to 200 in. Defense from 260 to 200 in. Itsuki then jumped above the massive stone beast, and a massive dark glowing flower appeared beside him, pulsing with power. He thought to himself that it was consuming all his magic to create the maximum orb it could produce right now. The stone beast glared up at him with bright yellow eyes as cracks of energy spread across its body. Itsuki shouted, telling the stone beast to take the biggest clear orb. The giant flower opened like petals, and released a powerful clear orb. The massive orb shot downward and struck the stone beast, blasting through its body as Itsuki unleashed the attack with full force. After landing the blow, Itsuki lowered his hand and smiled. He joked to himself, asking if he had pushed it a bit too far. A small window beside him showed that his magic had dropped to 0 out of 280. As the stone man was destroyed, a system window appeared, announcing that the giant stone man, level 15, had been defeated, and the clear orb's flight speed had increased by 200%. Amid the collapsing stone debris, Itsuki looked at the destruction around him. He realized that the orb he created by consuming all his magic had grown this huge. He examined its power calmly. The orb's flight speed had reached 7 meters per second. He thought to himself that if he cleared this stage 2 more times, it would become as fast as a car. Just then, a new system panel displayed the skill information. Clear Orb Level 2. Active effect. Fires a perfect sphere on a fixed path. The sphere travels at 7 meters and penetrates all enemies, ignoring their defense. After activation, the orb's size can be adjusted by spending more magic. Passive effect. Each time he defeats an enemy with higher defense than his own using Clear Orb, the orb's flight speed increases by plus 200%. The current total increase had reached 700%. Itsuki held a glowing green crystal in his hand while reading the information. He admitted that he had ignored passive effects until now, but now saw how useful they actually were. Dust settled around him as he walked forward. He then thought about another passive skill. Lotus Burst's passive expanded the range of all skills. That meant Clear Orb's range should also increase along with it. He then checked Lotus Burst's passive effect. Each time Lotus Burst defeats a living creature of level 1 or higher, the range of all skills increases by plus 1%. Seeing this, Itsuki smiled slightly as he looked at the system panel floating beside him. Itsuki imagined and thought to himself that if he kept increasing Lotus Burst's passive effect, he could eventually defeat disaster beasts from thousands or even tens of thousands of meters away. Then, outside, a bright green display screen lit up. It showed the result of the challenge. The challenge was successful. The stage level was 15. The challenger was Tenma Itsuki. The time used was 3 minutes and 1 second. The stage clear record was updated. Seeing that, the crowded group reacted immediately. One man shouted in disbelief, saying that 3 minutes and 1 second was impossible. Another said that even a 5-person party needed more than 10 minutes. Someone else wondered if Itsuki had defeated all the disaster beasts in a single hit. Another person pointed out that he had even broken Tuajin's 3-minute 19-second record, and asked what kind of monster he was. They all turned as someone announced that he was coming out. More voices followed. One person questioned why he was still level 0, and wondered if the clear notification was a bug. They looked at him and said he wasn't even injured, only a little dirty, so they didn't believe he had cleared it at all. Choa, in armor, stepped forward with a smile as a green butterfly flew around her. She was happy that he had cleared the stage unscathed again. And he had broken Jin's record again. She admitted that he always managed to surprise her. Choa then adjusted her glasses and, with a restrained tone, admitted that the challenge had ended unexpectedly quickly. Itsuki answered casually. He said the disaster beasts inside were weak against defense, so he had taken them down easily. The glowing butterfly hovered in front of Itsuki. He looked at it with surprise and asked what it was. Choha explained calmly. She said that her job was a Shikigami user, and the glowing butterfly was her Shikigami. Itsuki watched the butterfly flutter near his hand. He softly repeated its name, Tamacho, and admitted that this was his first time seeing a Shikigami. To him, it looked beautiful. Curious, he asked Choha what kinds of awakened jobs existed. His question startled her, and she asked why he didn't know something so basic. She then began explaining. Jobs, she said, were divided into 4 major types. According to her, he should have already encountered 3 of them by now. She raised her hand and continued her explanation. The first type she mentioned was elementalist. Elementalists controlled 7 elements: fire, water, wood, metal, earth, wind, and lightning. She said elementalists had the largest population among awakened jobs and also possessed the highest minimum combat capability. She then explained that his classmate who used electricity attacks and also the Oga muscular, iron-skinned man from earlier, belonged to that same type. She then introduced the second type, Shikigami user. She explained that Shikigami users could summon Shikigami that obeyed only their master. A blue system window appeared beside the butterfly, displaying that it was Tamachu, Li rank, level 15, ITS skill is undisclosed, status is undisclosed. Choha continued explaining that a Shikigami stayed with its master from birth. Then another system window appeared showing her own status. Izumi Choha, human, level 6, Jobert Shikigami user, gift grade 2, undisclosed, Shikigami undisclosed, status undisclosed. After explaining everything, she asked him if he had any questions so far. Itsuki looked at her Shikigami, and then asked why her own level was lower than her Shikigami's level. He wondered aloud if she was really a veteran awakened. His words hit Choha like arrows. She wondered to herself if Itsuki had no concept of sugarcoating things. Choha touched her forehead with a tired expression and explained that Shikigami also absorbed experience and leveled up. Because of that, they were basically always at a higher level than their master. Hearing that, Itsuki's expression darkened. Half of his face sank into shadow, and his eyes glowed coldly. He stated that in that case, when fighting a Shikigami user, it was faster to target the person themselves. Seeing that, Choa's eyes widened. She noticed the negative aura seeping out of him again and wondered what was going on with him. Itsuki then looked at her calmly and asked what else there was, pointing out that she had only introduced 2 types so far. Choa straightened herself and explained that the third job was currently the most mysterious one, with the least information known about it. She pointed at Itsuki and told him that his job was order breaker. Itsuki listened quietly as she continued explaining. She said the reason this job was mysterious was because every order breaker possessed different abilities, like the blue lotus flower ability he had shown earlier. She then explained that there were order breakers who could change the size of their bodies at will, others who could create infinite clones, and even some who could stretch their bodies freely like rubber. Next, she compared order breakers to regular awakened jobs. She explained that normal jobs had skills divided into 4 ranks, C, B, A, and S, while order breakers had only Z rank skills, abilities that stood completely outside that ranking system. Choa said that order breakers were treated differently because of these rare exclusive skills. She warned that if an order breaker's abilities became known to their enemies, they would lose their greatest advantage. That was why her father had scolded her earlier when she tried asking about his skills. She looked at him seriously and added that he was an irregular existence, even among order breakers. From what she had observed, he could already use at least 3 different skills, and 2 of those skills were normally only possible for elementalists. Hearing her words, Itsuki looked uneasy as he realized the teacher wasn't there. He thought to himself that he would be in trouble if Choha continued talking about him. Itsuki then asked her about the last job, adding that he had never seen it before. When Choha heard Itsuki asking about the last job, she kept a calm expression and told him she would only explain it after he actually saw it. She added that this was his punishment for never telling her anything about himself. Hearing that, Itsuki let out a quiet sigh and answered with a simple, "Fine." As she turned away, Choa reminded him that the students he saved were now safe. Then she asked what he planned to do after this. Itsuki replied that he was thinking of clearing the stage a few more times. Choha looked back at him sharply. She asked him if he really didn't know anything, explaining that stages had cooldown times. She warned him that this one had an especially long cooldown, meaning he couldn't enter again for at least 2 days. Hearing that, Itsuki's eyes widened in surprise. He wondered aloud if cooldown times really existed. He realized that this must be why Kinoshita monopolized the stages. Determined, He decided that if he couldn't raise the passive effect of his clear orb skill, then he would increase the power of his lotus burst instead. Itsuki then turned and asked Choa if there was a stage filled with disaster beasts. Choa thought for a moment, trying to remember any stage filled with disaster beasts. She then smiled confidently and chose a stage for him. She explained that in that stage, the levels of the disaster beasts were not very high, but the number of them was enormous. The place was called Locust Wasteland. She explained that there were at least 100 locust-type disaster beasts, even by a conservative estimate, and many awakened people backed out just from seeing how many there were. She then looked at him seriously and asked what he planned to do, since it would be difficult without AoE skills. For those who didn't know, AoE meant area of effect or area attacks. Itsuki answered firmly that he was going. In his thoughts, he remembered that he hadn't used Lotus Burst in front of her yet, so she didn't know he actually had an area attack. A shocked Choa asked him again if he was really going. She reminded him once more that without AoE skills, he would have a really hard time. But Itsuki told her not to worry, saying he would be fine. Some nearby awakened individuals became shocked as they listened. One of them asked if he was really going to the Locust Wasteland and said he must not know fear. Another person whispered that once Kinoshita Reiji heard about Oga, he would definitely come. The group decided to leave quickly. They said they should get out before getting caught in the crossfire. Then, a few minutes later, Kinoshita Reiji arrived there and looked around the empty area. He asked in shock why there wasn't a single person present. His bodyguard in a suit stood behind him and reported that the target had gone somewhere. Kinoshita Reiji asked how it was possible. It had only been 30 minutes since the target entered, yet the target had already cleared the Flaming Rock execution ground. His bodyguard said it was hard to believe, but seemed to be true. He then asked what Kinoshita planned to do now. Kinoshita Reiji gritted his teeth and said the target was making a fool out of him. He then said that if the target had used skills, there should still be magic traces left behind. He ordered his bodyguard to contact the Hound and make it track the target. Kinoshita Reiji shouted angrily for them to capture the target alive no matter what, saying he would make the target taste what living hell was. At the same time, inside a dim alley lined with machinery, a man pressed his back against the wall, hidden in the shadows. His panicked thoughts echoed as he regretted taking the assassination request. He muttered to himself that he never knew Kinoshita Reiji had such a strong subordinate, and cursed himself for accepting the job. That same man slumped to the ground, exhausted and trembling. He breathed heavily and admitted that without his earth escape technique, he would have been killed. Sweat dripped down his face as he caught his breath. He slowly peeked around a corner, whispering that he should be safe now that he had gotten this far. His eyes widened with fear as he carefully watched his surroundings. Suddenly, a massive beast lunged toward him with its jaws wide open. The monster's sharp teeth and glowing red eyes filled his vision as it attacked. Before he could react, the creature pinned him to the ground. He choked as its fangs pressed against him. A voice spoke nearby, calm but cold. The speaker approached and looked down at the scene. He ordered the beast called Death to loosen its grip, saying the man seemed to have something to say. The giant wolf-like creature eased up slightly as the man lay helpless beneath it. The wounded man lay on the ground with blood on his face. With fear in his trembling voice, he asked how they had managed to find him. In front of him, the long-haired man in the coat explained calmly. He said that their beast, Death, had a sharp sense of smell. The creature could sense the scent of death coming from people like him. That man was the Hound Kinoshita Reiji had been talking about. His name was Charles. He stepped forward, tipping his hat as he walked. He said that Death could smell the death they were giving off. Filled with terror, the injured man begged for his life. He cried and pleaded for them not to kill him. Charles looked down at him with a cold smile. He said that the request was difficult, because Mr. Kinoshita would get angry. He added that Death had not eaten human flesh in a long time. Then Charles' eyes glowed red. He gave a sharp command, telling Death that it was mealtime. The massive black wolf lunged forward with its jaws wide open, fangs bared as it roared fiercely. A moment later, it ate the man. The wolf stood beside the long-haired man in a trench coat. The man looked at it calmly and said that it had finally leveled up. A glowing blue panel appeared, showing the creature's details. Death Hound, Dwangpriting. Level, 16. Skill, Death Smell, C rank. Detects all magic traces in an area and identifies the magic source. Second skill, Respawn Desire, B rank. After the Shikigami dies, its respawn time is greatly reduced. Status, Attack 250, Agility 250, Magic 150. Just then, the man's phone began vibrating. He glanced at the screen and answered the call. He told the person on the other side that he had finished things there. As he listened, his expression changed. He asked if Oga had been badly injured. He wondered aloud if someone had struck that stubborn Oga's weak point. Finally, he replied that he understood and said he was on his way. He ended the call and turned back toward the wolf. With a small gesture, he told it that a new prey had appeared and ordered it to move. Sometime later, in a bright golden field labeled as the Locust Wasteland, a dome-shaped building stood in the distance. Itsuki and Choha approached it along a narrow dirt path. Itsuki looked at the structure and asked softly, "Here?" He stared across the endless wheat fields and wondered aloud if there were really that many locusts in a place that looked so quiet and peaceful. Walking beside him, Choa explained calmly. She said that disaster beasts always chose environments that suited them when invading this world. Because of that, predicting the type of beast based on the surrounding terrain was an important skill for awakened individuals. Hearing that, Itsuki nodded. As they moved closer, he noticed there wasn't even a reception desk. Choha touched her forehead and explained that the danger level of this stage was extremely high, so high that it had already reached the point of a dismantlement resolution. Confused, Itsuki compared it to the Flaming Rock execution ground, noting that this stage was actually below level 13. He asked why such a drastic decision was made. Choha replied that in normal stages, people could still escape if they couldn't win. But here, the disaster beasts were unnaturally aggressive and appeared in overwhelming numbers. As they studied the stage's environment, Choha explained the danger. She said that if an awakened person let their guard down even a little, they would quickly be surrounded by countless locusts. She continued, saying that anyone caught like that would be devoured completely, down to the marrow of their bones. Hearing all of this, Itsuki only smirked. He said that it was perfect if there were really so many disaster beasts here. His excitement made Choha stare at him in disbelief. She asked if he was in a rush to die. He calmly replied that he wasn't desperate enough to die by being eaten by bugs. Moments later, he stepped toward the entrance of the glowing stage gate. Choha watched him, noting from his attitude that he seemed confident enough. She reminded herself that he had entered this stage by his own choice, and she had already given him all the advice she could. With a quiet sigh, she accepted the situation. If something happened inside, it would be entirely his own responsibility. But Choha suddenly froze, as worry washed over her face. She wondered what she should do. She realized she had forgotten to tell Itsuki an important detail. Locusts inside the stage would continue spawning endlessly unless the boss was defeated. Panic rose as she decided she had to enter the stage and warn him herself. But suddenly she heard some noise from behind. Just as she turned, her expression stiffened. Someone had appeared behind her. She saw a tall man wearing a hat, with glowing red eyes, standing beside a giant hound. The man looked at her and spoke with a cold smile, saying he was looking for someone. On the other hand, inside the stage, Itsuki stepped across a ruined field. Dirt and trampled crops surrounded him. He looked around and muttered that it was a mess. Then he clapped his hands together lightly and smiled with confidence. He called out to the unseen swarm, telling the pests to wake up. He had come to exterminate them. A lone scarecrow stood in the middle of the dry, cracked wasteland as countless small insects flew around it. Itsuki looked at the scene and noted that the enemy's individual levels were surprisingly low. He said that since they met the requirements for Lotus Burst, there would be no problem. Information windows appeared one after another. Evil Locust 2231, from Insect Tribe, Level 1. Gift, none. Status, undisclosed. There were also some Level 2 evil locusts mixed in. Itsuki stared at the dark sky as an enormous swarm of locusts covered everything. He commented on the incredible number of enemies. But instead of being worried, he said that this worked in his favor. Flames rose around him as he formed a glowing lotus of light in his hands. He explained that the more the locusts clustered together, the less effort he needed. Once they entered the range of Lotus Burst, he said he would crush them all at once. The ground shook as a vortex of locusts formed around him. When the moment was right, he shouted a single command, "Now." A bright red explosion ignited in the air as the system message appeared, stating that Lotus Burst had been activated. Then there was a huge explosion. Right after the blast, notifications flashed one after another. Each one reported that an evil locust had been defeated by Lotus Burst, increasing all of the user's skill ranges by 1%. More messages followed, showing both Level 1 and Level 2 locusts being wiped out instantly. When the smoke cleared, Itsuki stood calmly in the middle of the scorched ground. Sparks drifted around him, while charred insect bodies lay scattered at his feet. Another notification floated beside him, confirming the defeat of a level 2 Locust and awarding another 1% increase. New windows opened, explaining Lotus Burst's abilities. The active effect consumed magic to deal explosive damage within a 10.5-meter range, its power proportional to how much magic was spent. The passive effect stated that every time Lotus Burst killed a living creature of level 1 or higher, all skill ranges increased by 1%. Itsuki glanced at the numbers and made a small comment. He had defeated 110 enemies, which meant a 10% increase, therefore receiving 10% at once. Lotus Burst's range had now expanded to 10.5 meters, which he considered impressive. He analyzed the situation calmly. Against disaster beasts of this level, consuming 10% of his magic to output 10% of his firepower should be enough. Taking his remaining magic and recovery speed into account, he could probably use about 10 more shots. If he gained even 100 kills per use, he could increase his total skill range by 1000%. Another screen displayed his magic level, 252 out of 280. He looked at it and muttered that things would go much more smoothly if stages didn't have cooldown times. But suddenly, Itsuki noticed something. He stared at his bracelet with a confused expression. He noticed that the usual challenge success notification was missing. He muttered that something felt odd. As he frowned, a thought crossed his mind, and he wondered if the reason was something unexpected. Just then, a system window suddenly appeared. It reported that a C-rank skill called Mother's Will had been detected. It also stated that Over-Mimus was activated, and that the analysis progress was at 1%. Itsuki looked up sharply. He realized that one locust had survived. Dust and broken ground swirled around him as more locusts flew through the air. He turned, watching the locust swarm gather again. He questioned whether Mother's Will was the boss monster's skill. At that moment, several locusts lunged at him. He jumped back and blocked the attacks with the crystal armor covering his arms. He admitted to himself that he had let his guard down. He had truly believed there was no boss monster in this area. He narrowed his eyes, thinking aloud. He said it was good that he could still expand his skill range by using Lotus Burst again. But he also stated the bigger problem. He had no idea where the boss actually was. The glowing lotus-shaped energy expanded from Itsuki's hands as he activated his skill. His expression hardened with resolve. He declared that he would defeat all the small enemies first and force the hidden boss to reveal itself. A bright explosion erupted around him. The ground shook as countless evil locusts were blown apart by the blast. System notifications appeared one after another. Each message showed that an evil locust, either level 1 or level 2, had been defeated with Lotus Burst, and every kill increased all his skill ranges by 1%. The notifications continued stacking until the Lotus Burst total experience reached 220%. His Lotus Burst leveled up. Another message explained the updated skill. Lotus Burst LV2 now consumed magic to deal explosive damage within a 16-meter diameter, and its power increased based on how much magic was used. Itsuki looked at the smoking battlefield and murmured that the range had expanded to 16 meters, calling the new effectiveness outstanding. But even after defeating 10 small enemies, the boss still hadn't appeared. Deep underground, inside a dim nest filled with shifting shadows, many insect-like creatures began to crawl and move. Their wings rustled as more of them gathered around a glowing cluster hidden in the darkness. As the locusts crawled out of the cracked ground, a notification floated in front of Itsuki, showing the analysis progress rising to 27%. He looked ahead sharply and muttered that they had spawned again. Another screen appeared, showing his magic at 232 out of 280. He noted that he could still use Lotus Burst 9 more times. Fire erupted around his hand as he stepped forward, declaring that no matter how many times the monsters appeared, he would thoroughly deal with them. His arm swung through the flames, and he shouted that he would sweep them all away. A fiery explosion burst across the battlefield, and several notifications appeared one after another, stating that evil locusts of level 1 had been defeated with Lotus Burst, and that all skill ranges increased by 1%. More screens stacked up endlessly, showing the same message again and again. A blinding explosion tore through the ground as Lotus Burst activated again, scattering debris in every direction. Bright light flashed across the stage, and the blue notification window appeared with the same message, Lotus Burst. Another massive blast followed right after, engulfing the area in a wave of yellow flames and flying rubble. The screen repeated the skill name, Lotus Burst. A new system panel displayed the updated description of the skill. It stated that Lotus Burst LV2 consumed magic to deal explosive damage within a 54.5-meter diameter, its power tied directly to magic consumption. Below it, another panel explained the passive effect. Every time the skill defeated a creature of level 1 or higher, all skill ranges increased by plus 1%, now reaching a total of plus 990%. Itsuki ran forward through the burning battlefield, sweat rolling down his face. He glanced at the glowing screen. He said that up until now, he had wiped out large groups 9 times and expanded Lotus Burst's range by 990%, but he only had enough magic left to use it one more time. He wondered why the monsters kept appearing non-stop. His magic display dropped to 5280. He looked up as the sky darkened with swarming insects. He muttered in frustration that there was no end to them. The swarm grew thicker overhead, but even after all the destruction, he saw no trace of the stage boss. He frowned and said that there was still no sign of the boss appearing at all. He considered withdrawing temporarily from the stage and returning after the analysis finished. But even as he thought it through, the endless swarm closed in around him. Itsuki narrowed his eyes sharply as a thought erupted in his mind. He declared that behaving like that was what third raters would do. Fire gathered in his hand, and flames wrapped around his arm. With determination burning in his expression, he stated that no matter how many disaster beasts appeared, he would defeat every single one of them. A massive explosion erupted like a lotus blooming in fire, sending shockwaves across the ground. As smoke rose around him, Itsuki steadied himself and muttered that with this attack. But before he could finish, countless more insects filled the air. Swarms surrounded him, and he realized in frustration that there were still more, and their numbers hadn't decreased at all. A glowing system screen appeared before him, showing the analysis progress at 91%. Itsuki's eyes widened as he tried to make sense of the situation. He wondered what was happening. All the disaster beasts that had appeared since the first defeat were still only level 1. Their bodies were small too, as if they had just hatched. As he connected all the dots, he realized the truth at once. The boss's ability was infinite reproduction. A massive golden insect, the queen locust, crouched in the darkness as glowing eggs shot out from its abdomen. A system window identified it. Queen locust Sumbro 379, insect tribe, level 13, gift, grade 1, lays large quantities of evil locust eggs, skill, mother's will. Itsuki looked up, sweat trailing down his face. If the queen could reproduce endlessly, then fighting the small ones meant nothing. The only way forward was to defeat the boss itself. His magic was nearly gone. But the analysis bar floated in front of him, rising steadily. 98%. He clenched his teeth as the final percentage completed. The blue sphere of the analysis pulsed outward. Analysis progress, 100%. A new message appeared. Mother's will. Analysis complete. Skill acquired. Magic detection LV1. Another window followed. Magic detection LV1. Active effect. After activation, continuously consumes magic to sense magic flow within a 100-meter diameter. Passive effect. Range expanded to 1100 meter because of Lotus Burst's passive effect. Additional passive. Each time one enemy unit is detected, the user's magic recovers by 10%. Seeing this, Itsuki's eyes widened as he read the description. A detection skill. Its effective range now stretching over 1,000 meters, and every enemy detected would restore his magic. A smile curved across his lips. The passive effect was perfect for this stage. Hunting the smaller creatures again and again would now benefit him greatly. He tilted his head slightly, his eyes shining with confidence. He thought that leaving the queen alone for a moment and clearing out more enemies wouldn't be a bad plan at all. As he lowered his gaze, he thought quietly to himself. He realized he had been keeping Choha waiting. For now, he decided to finish clearing the stage before returning. A blue system window appeared before him, announcing that magic detection level 1 had been acquired. All of his stats rose by 10 points. All debuffs were removed, and his injuries were fully healed. Another window displayed the updated numbers. His attack increased from 200 to 290. His agility rose from 200 to 290. His defense moved from 200 to 290. His magic stat climbed from 200 to 290, where Turening his total grew from 120 to 1160. Itsuki then raised his hand to his forehead, as swirling energy surrounded him. He activated the new skill, focusing intently. He began locating the boss using magic detection. Wide ripples of energy spread out from his body, expanding across the entire area like rings on water. The waves traveled far into the distance, lighting up the surroundings as they moved. Down below, the massive golden insect boss lifted its head, its yellow eyes glowing as the waves passed over it. Itsuki's eyes suddenly sharpened. In the next instant, He spotted the reaction in the distance. He slowly raised 2 fingers and pointed them forward, a confident smile forming on his face. A surge of dark, swirling energy formed at his fingertips, twisting the air around him. He was going to use his clear orb skill. Amid the chaos, his steady voice echoed. He said that even if the enemy used its children as shields, it would be useless. The clear orb began to glow, merging with the power of Lotus Burst. A bright lotus-shaped light burst outward, illuminating the battlefield. He declared that with Lotus Burst's passive effect and the clear orb's current flight range, the attack would definitely reach its target. A system window appeared, stating that the clear orb's flight distance was now 120 meters. In the next instant, the glowing orb shot across the field like a streak of purple lightning. Wind burst apart in its wake as the queen locust recoiled in shock, spreading its golden wings wide to escape. But Itsuki was already behind it, surrounded by crackling blue crystal. His transformed figure loomed like a shadow. Lightning surrounded Itsuki as he appeared above the queen. Looking at her, he said, "Checkmate." He slammed his attack down, overpowering the queen with sheer force. He cut down the queen into pieces. Immediately, the whole insect swamp was disturbed. Seeing that, he realized the swarm fell into chaos after losing its queen. Itsuki turned toward them with cold eyes. Flames erupted from his crystal-covered arm as he promised to send the remaining creatures to their mama right away. After the Lotus Burst explosion, all insects fell to the ground. Itsuki stood in the settling dust, looking at the battlefield calmly. He stated that all his skill ranges had increased by 1210%, that Lotus Burst's explosion radius now reached 65.5 meters, and that the clear orb's flight distance had expanded to 131 meters. A system window appeared, describing Lotus Burst at level 2. It explained that the active skill consumed magic to cause explosive damage within a 65.5 meter diameter, its power tied to magic consumption. The passive effect showed that every time Lotus Burst defeated a living creature of level 1 or higher, all skill ranges increased by 1%, now totaling plus 121-10%. A second notification appeared, showing the flight distance of the true ball, 131 meters. Itsuki looked at the result and smiled, saying it had been a good harvest. He held a green leaf in his hand while sitting on the ground, surrounded by rising dust. He then thought to himself that when the cooldown ended, he would challenge it again and raise Lotus Burst's passive effect to 5 digits. As he returned to exit the dungeon, a new notification appeared, stating new record achieved. Another line reported time used, 17 minutes 7 seconds. Standing in front of a glowing blue portal, Itsuki looked at the timer and noted that it had taken 17 minutes. He thought that Choha must be worried. He imagined Choha waiting outside. He believed that when he returned safely, she would probably act aloof again, yet he knew she was actually kind and considerate. He thought her inability to be honest was somewhat cute. Stepping out of the portal, surrounded by a swirl of blue energy, he lifted his hand and greeted her, saying he was back and sorry for worrying, but then his eyes widened sharply, shock filling them. Right in front of him, Choha appeared injured, blood on her lips. A man with glowing red eyes held her up by the collar. He looked down at Itsuki and spoke coldly. He said that going solo and coming out of the stage safely could mean only one thing. Itsuki was the guy Reiji had been looking for. Charles in the wide-brimmed hat looked at Itsuki and spoke calmly. He said the timing was perfect. He had been trying to get information about Itsuki from Choha, whom he had captured, but even in her current condition she refused to talk. Charles added that Choha had more backbone than most men. Across from him, Itsuki stepped forward. His voice was cold as he told Charles to let go of Choha with his filthy hands. He warned that if Charles did not do so now, he would only be half killed. Hearing that, Charles laughed loudly. He mocked Itsuki and told him not to get cocky, calling him just a level 0 rookie. But in the next moment, blue electricity burst from Itsuki's body as he shot forward with incredible speed. His eyes glowed with a sharp red light as he charged toward Charles. Charles flinched in fear, shouting that he was fast, then called out to Death. Before Itsuki's blow could land, Death, a giant black beast, suddenly leapt between them. Itsuki's lightning-covered punch slammed into Death instead, sending sparks and force blasting outward as Death roared. Just as Death appeared in front of Itsuki, a glowing system window appeared, announcing that a B-rank Shikigami called the Death Hound had been detected. Another window followed, showing that Overmimesis had activated, with analysis beginning at 1%. When Itsuki saw the notification, he realized the truth. This dog was a Shikigami, which meant the man wearing the hat was its user. The analysis window continued to rise, reaching 12%. Charles narrowed his eyes as he watched Itsuki move. He noted that there were no wasted movements and that his opponent's speed was extremely high. He understood now why Oga had lost. Oga likely did not even have enough time to metalize before being defeated. But Charles showed no fear. He grinned and declared that he had death and a hostage. Behind him, Choa struggled weakly in his grasp. Hearing this, Itsuki shouted her name, his expression tightening in alarm. Itsuki, who stood firm and was holding Death's snout with one hand, got distracted. Death broke free from his grip and roared, baring its sharp teeth as it lunged. The monster's glowing red eyes locked onto him. Charles smirked as he spoke. He said that Death's bite force could crush any enemy with a defense lower than 30. At best, he said, Itsuki would get his arm bitten off. But the next second, Charles's expression suddenly froze. His eyes widened in shock as he looked ahead. In front of him, black spikes grew around Itsuki's body, blocking the beast's bite. Immediately, Itsuki used his Lotus Orb skill, aiming at Death. With a violent burst of energy, the Lotus Orb was released from Itsuki's hand and hit Death directly in the head. It tore through Death's skull, ripping out its core and ending its life instantly. A blue window appeared, showing the analysis progress climbing. The number reached 77%. Itsuki stood calmly over the defeated hound. He explained that without a Shikigami user was basically defenseless. Charles stared at him in disbelief. He wondered if Itsuki did not know that as a rookie, the Shikigami could respawn. On top of that, because of the B-rank skill Respawn Desire, Death's respawn time was greatly reduced. The next second, Death respawned and attacked Itsuki from behind. Charles warned Itsuki that staying careless like that would make him Death's prey. The beast charged, jaws wide open, but suddenly waves of magical detection spread out as Itsuki activated his skill, Magic Detection. Itsuki sensed Death's attack and moved with lightning speed to counter it. Well to himself that keeping Magic Detection active ever since he acquired it had been the right choice. The analysis progress climbed. 89%, 91%. Itsuki glanced at Charles, who was watching while holding Choa, and noted that the analysis would finish soon. He thought that if the Blue Lotus appeared from over Mimas, Charles might become wary. The progress bar reached 95%. Seeing Itsuki move and kick Death without even looking back, Charles started sweating. He realized the truth: this opponent had more power and more speed than Death and even possessed detection skills. He panicked, realizing he could not launch a surprise attack at all in this situation. Charles pulled Chosha in front of him and tightened his grip around her neck. His voice trembled with panic as he warned that if Itsuki resisted any further, Chosha's life would end. Itsuki watched quietly. He wanted to finish his analysis without revealing the Blue Lotus, but the situation made it difficult. Just then, a bright system window appeared before him, showing analysis progress 100%. Another screen followed. Death Eater analysis complete. Shikigami Eater has been acquired. It explained the active effect. By directly touching a Shikigami, he could take ownership of the opponent's Shikigami. Itsuki looked at the result and realized he could even control whether the Blue Lotus appeared, because the analysis had completed without revealing it. More system messages appeared, saying Shikigami Eater, Level 2 acquired. All stats increased by 20. Then a system notice explained that because Over Mimas had activated incompletely, debuff removal and full recovery had failed. Itsuki's updated status flashed. Attack, agility, defense and magic increased from 290 to 310, and his total stat points increased from 1060 to 1240. Seeing the notification, Itsuki thought to himself that skipping the Blue Lotus came with a price, since it lost its recovery ability. But he had already fully recovered once during the last stage. Because of that, he could still fight at almost full strength even without recovering now. Just then, Death charged forward with its jaws wide open, roaring as it rushed toward Itsuki. In that moment, Itsuki realized something important. He understood that this new skill allowed him to steal other people's Shikigami. He looked down at the glowing energy gathering in his hands, calm despite the danger. He thought to himself that if that was the case, then he already knew what he should do. Blue energy burst around him as he raised his hand. With sharp determination, he placed his hand on top of Death's head, deciding that he would take Charles's dog. Blue flower petals erupted like a storm. Death's body was wrapped in swirling petals of energy as the power pulled it away. The next second, Itsuki stepped forward with overwhelming speed and kicked Death, sending it blasting across the field. Death went flying and fell behind Charles. Seeing that, Charles panicked. He stared at the scene and cursed angrily, calling Death a useless mutt. He shouted in frustration, demanding to know what he had fed it all that experience for. Charles tightened his grip on the injured Choka and shouted in rage. He warned that if Itsuki resisted any further, he would snap her neck. Choka, battered and barely conscious, forced her eyes open. With a trembling voice, she told Itsuki not to worry about her. Across from them, Itsuki slowly raised both his hands in surrender. He called out, telling Charles not to touch her. Seeing that, Charles smirked coldly. He said that if Itsuki had been obedient from the beginning, Choa wouldn't have had to suffer like this. Itsuki glared at Charles and asked why he was being targeted, saying he didn't remember doing anything to earn such a grudge. Hearing that, Charles sneered, accusing him of still trying to probe for information. He then explained that it didn't matter, because Itsuki would meet him soon anyway. He told Itsuki that Kinoshita Reiji was furious that Itsuki had entered a North District 4 stage without permission. He introduced himself, saying he was Charles the Hound, sent under Reiji's orders to capture him. Hearing that name again, Itsuki muttered that he needed to meet Kinoshita directly and talk things out. Charles grinned and said that Itsuki would meet him soon, but only in a battered body. He then announced that death would bite off his legs next and warned that if Itsuki wanted Choa to stay alive, he was forbidden from using that strange ice again. Charles pointed at Itsuki and gave the command, telling Death to bite off both of Itsuki's legs. Hearing that, Itsuki narrowed his eyes. Instead of fear, a cold determination filled them. He told Death to prove it was worthy of being his Shikigami. In the next instant, Death turned and lunged, not at Itsuki, but at Charles, sinking its teeth into its former master. Taking advantage of the moment, Itsuki moved at lightning speed, appearing behind Choha. Blue sparks burst around him as he caught her gently in his arms, pulling her away from danger. Charles screamed as he stared in shock. Sweat ran down his face as he shouted, asking why Death was attacking him. Its own master. Shikigami Death stood beside Itsuki with glowing red eyes. Death growled quietly as Itsuki praised it, telling it that it did well. Itsuki then held the injured Chotra in his arms. Blue energy surrounded him as he spoke coldly. He said he would return the pain Chocha suffered 10 times, no, 100 times over. He warned that Charles would regret laying hands on them, crying and wailing. Hearing that, Charles fell back, terrified. He begged for a chance to speak, claiming he had only followed Reiji's orders. His voice shook as he suggested they team up instead. He said he would lure out Reiji for him. Itsuki's eyes glowed red. He looked down at him and said that it was a good proposal. Seeing this, Charles's expression changed. A sharp grin spread across his face as he muttered that he had found an opening. He threw a blade toward Itsuki and shouted for him to die. The attack flashed forward with blinding light, but Itsuki was calm and easily dodged the blade. His eyes narrowed as he watched the attack pass by. He muttered that he alone was more than enough to kill Kinoshita Reiji. Beside him stood Death, its eyes glowing red, ready. Itsuki ordered Death to make Charles suffer the same treatment Choha had endured. Death's jaws opened wide, revealing sharp fangs as it prepared to strike. Seeing that, Charles froze in terror. Sweat dripped down his face as he begged for mercy. He insisted that his hand had slipped earlier and that he would apologize. Trembling, he pleaded for one more chance. But Itsuki didn't falter. Holding Choha in his arms, he stared coldly and told Charles that it was mealtime. Death, with glowing red eyes, rushed forward, its fangs bared as it charged at the man. Charles panicked as he stumbled back. Tears streamed down his face as he shouted, asking if Death had forgotten who its master was. He reminded Death how much he had fed it. His voice shook as he tried to speak again. But Death opened its jaws wide, revealing rows of sharp teeth as it lunged at him. Death finished off Charles. A short distance away, Itsuki stood while carrying the injured Chodua in his arms. He had sensed someone watching them. Itsuki told the hidden person that he had been watching them ever since Itsuki left the stage. Itsuki then turned and asked how long the hidden person planned to stay hidden, telling him to show himself. Hearing his words, nearby tall grass rustled as someone began to move, stepping out into the light. It was a hooded blonde young man who stepped out from the tall grass, scratching the back of his head with an awkward smile. He said softly that they had caught him. Itsuki held the injured Chofa in his arms as a dark aura spread behind him. His eyes glowed as he asked the blonde man if he was working with Charles from earlier. Startled, the blonde man waved his hands frantically and shouted that he wasn't an enemy. He begged them to listen. Itsuki glanced at him coldly and said fine. He didn't have time to deal with him. Behind them, Death continued eating Charles it had taken down. Itsuki ordered Death to follow him after finishing the meal. The blonde man watched in shock. Even a savage beast like death obeyed Itsuki without hesitation. He thought that someone like Itsuki might actually be able to help him. He quickly approached and introduced himself as Iberia, asking for Itsuki's name. Excited, he said the fight earlier was amazing, even though there were some terrifying moments. He added that Itsuki must be the mysterious man who defeated Oga Takeru. Itsuki answered calmly. His name was Tenma Itsuki, while continuing to hold the unconscious Choga in his arms. Iberia nervously followed beside Itsuki. He smiled awkwardly and asked if Itsuki could lend him a hand. He said he would pay him, or he could give him karma stones, or even a weapon. Itsuki stayed silent, walking forward with the injured Choha. Iberia watched him leave, sweat forming on his face. He wondered why Itsuki wasn't responding. His father had once told him that anyone would happily help if given enough compensation. Now he questioned if that had been a lie. A memory surfaced. His father hammering steel in front of a blazing forge. His father explained that compensation required creativity, just like how a cup of water was more valuable than treasure in the desert. His father said that for someone seeking revenge, one must offer a blade. For someone injured, offer medicine. He said that was enough compensation for them. Back in the present, understanding flashed across Iberia's face. He clenched his fist with excitement and said he finally understood. Iberia called out from behind, reminding Itsuki that he had come on foot. He said that with an injured person it was impossible to move quickly, and that the nearest hospital was dozens of kilometers away. He warned that if Itsuki walked that slowly, the woman he was carrying would die. Iberia then reached into his bag and held up a glowing scroll. He said that he happened to have healing items. But even hearing that, Itsuki continued walking. Iberia shouted in a hurry that he could save her. Hearing this, Itsuki stopped and turned his head, asking if that was really true. Iberia explained that he couldn't fully heal her right away, but he could save her life. The two of them knelt beside the injured Choha. Itsuki asked if the healing could be done through her clothes. Iberia replied that the bandage he was using wasn't ordinary. He wrapped the glowing bandage around her, explaining that it was a rare karma tool made from bandages worn by the Shadow tribe and bark taken from the Kodama tribe. Itsuki looked at Iberia and repeated the unfamiliar term, asking what a karma tool was. Iberia studied him and said that at his level he must have just become an awakened. He explained that it was no surprise Itsuki didn't know. Iberia explained that modern weapons didn't work on disaster beasts. Guns were useless against them, so firearms couldn't be used in real combat. However, crafters were able to forge special anti-disaster beast items known as karma tools, created from monument materials and the body parts of disaster beasts. He said that karma tools were divided into 4 ranks depending on the crafter's skill and the materials used. The 4 ranks were normal, rare, epic, and unique. Iberia then explained using a simple longsword as an example. Normal karma tools weren't much different from regular weapons, except they were capable of damaging disaster beasts and awakened beings. The sword was labeled an ordinary longsword. The next weapon was the ocean sword, rare, which increased agility and magic. Iberia said that rare karma tools boosted their owner's stats. The third weapon was the blood sword, epic, which increased attack power and absorbed blood to raise the blade's temperature and reduce an enemy's self-healing by half. Iberia explained that epic karma tools not only boosted stats but also possessed special effects. Iberia continued by explaining the final rank of karma tools, which was the holy sword, unique. It granted increased attack and agility. Its unique effect allowed the user to obtain the inexhaustible magic sealed inside it, enabling infinite magic usage. Iberia said that the ultimate goal for every crafter was to create a unique karma tool, weapons with massive stat boosts and powerful one-of-a-kind effects. Iberia went on to explain that crafters themselves didn't have much combat power, and there were very few of them. But because they could forge karma tools, all awakened people respected them. Hearing that, Itsuki asked Iberia if his father was a crafter. Iberia smiled and replied that his father wasn't just any crafter. He explained that countless crafters couldn't create a unique karma tool even once in their entire lives. Across the 5 continents, there were only 10 crafters who had achieved that level. Then he proudly added that 3 of those 10 unique tools were made by his father. That was why everyone called his father the crafter king of the northern continent. Saying that, Iberia grinned proudly. Finally, he turned and saw that Itsuki wasn't even looking at him. He got angry and shouted, asking Itsuki if he was even listening. He complained loudly that he was explaining everything kindly, while Itsuki was being rude. He shouted at him not to ignore him, but Itsuki didn't respond. Instead, he quietly examined the crossbow in his hands and said that it was the same crossbow Charles had been using. Iberia was shocked, seeing that even after hearing about his father, Itsuki didn't look surprised at all. He muttered that any normal awakened person would have already been flattering him. Meanwhile, Itsuki kept studying the weapon, and thought that having it would let him reduce how often he needed to use the clear orb, and also lower the risk of exposing his abilities. Iberia looked at it and told Itsuki that this weapon was a rare karma tool. Hearing that, Itsuki commented that it was unfortunate there were no arrows left. Iberia explained that projectile karma tools didn't need normal arrows. Any ordinary ammunition could be assimilated into karma tool ammunition, so there was nothing to worry about. Just then, a screen appeared showing the name Hunter's Crossbow Rare, with an agility increase of +50. Then the crossbow vanished. Itsuki looked surprised and asked why it disappeared. Iberia told him that this was another feature of karma tools. Once a karma tool linked with its owner, it would be stored away and reappear whenever the owner wished to use it. Hearing that, Itsuki said it was convenient. He thanked Iberia for the treatment, and told him to let him know if he ever needed help. He added that once he finished his own business, he needed to go find Kinoshita Reiji. Hearing that name, Iberia reacted and said he thought he had misheard earlier. He said Itsuki must be incredibly bold to go against someone like Kinoshita Reiji in North District 4. Hearing his words, Itsuki looked at him calmly and asked if he was also going to tell him to give up. Iberia told Itsuki that if his target was Kinoshita Reiji, then they were after the same person. Itsuki asked calmly if Iberia had angered Reiji as well. Iberia said it wasn't exactly like that, and explained that he wanted the two of them to team up for the Salvation League National Tournament preliminaries happening the day after tomorrow. Hearing about the preliminaries, Itsuki remembered Choha mentioning that only the top 10 would advance to the main tournament, and he had been grinding stages non-stop these past few days to prepare. Itsuki asked Iberia what the tournament preliminaries had to do with Kinoshita Reiji. Iberia explained that the preliminaries were divided by continents, and for the northern continent, the venue was located in North District 4. He explained that as the son of the North District 4 administrator, Reiji was determined to compete in the main tournament. His older brother was also a savior, so failing to reach the top 10 would disgrace the Kinoshita family name. Hearing that, Itsuki then understood why Reiji monopolized all stages in North District 4 to level up quickly. He looked at Iberia and asked why someone like him would want to team up with him, especially since he had been receiving help from him this whole time. Iberia raised his voice confidently, saying it was because Itsuki was strong. He believed that if they teamed up, they would definitely pass the preliminaries. Itsuki then asked why Iberia was so fixated on this year, pointing out that he was younger and had plenty of opportunities ahead. Hearing Itsuki ask that, Iberia looked tense as he clenched his fist. Then he answered softly that there was a reason. He recalled his childhood. Since he was young, he had watched his father create karma tools right in front of him. His eyes had always sparkled as he watched. Every completed karma tool looked perfect, like a piece of art. His admiration for his father kept growing. He remembered his dream. He had always wanted to become an awakened one someday. He imagined himself fighting disaster beasts, using the karma tools his father made. A month ago, he finally awakened. Excited, he begged his father for a karma tool, but his father refused, telling him it was too early. His father said that only saviors could use his karma tools. Iberia didn't give up. He kept begging. Finally, his father set a condition. If he passed this year's preliminaries, he would receive one. Iberia clenched his fist tightly. With determination in his eyes, he declared that this was why he had to win this year's preliminaries no matter what. Itsuki looked at Iberia and spoke calmly. He said that with such an amazing father, Iberia should have plenty of options. There was no need for him to team up with someone like a level 0. Iberia lowered his eyes and replied that his father had thought of that too. So before he left, his father told him to pass the preliminaries with his own skills. His father warned him that if he teamed up with strong partners using his father's name, he would not receive any karma tools. Hearing that, Itsuki commented that his father seemed strict. Iberia explained further that according to his information network, most strong participants had already been bought off by Kinoshita. What remained were lone wolves who disliked teaming up, or groups with fixed members. He had no prospects for teammates. With excitement, Iberia grabbed Itsuki's hand and explained that 2 days ago, he had heard news that someone had defeated Oga Takeru, one of the 4 pillars, and even broken stage records. Because of this, he dug for information continuously and eventually found his way here. Itsuki first freed his hand and then agreed to team up. He said the team was no problem, But first he wanted to take Choa to the hospital. With excitement, Iberia declared that he would come along. From now on they were a duo. Iberia then said they needed a duo name. He brought up possibilities, combining Tenma Itsuki and Iberia. He suggested Iba-ten, but rejected it because it sounded like a store name. He tried Ibeitsu, then Tenmaria, then Tenibe, changing ideas one after another. Nearby, Itsuki carried the unconscious Choha in his arms. He looked tired and thought to himself that he was in trouble, because Iberia talked even more than Rikuru. Suddenly, Itsuki thought about Rikuru and Saya. He wondered how they were doing and whether they were participating in the preliminaries now that both had awakened. Just then, Iberia suddenly brightened with an idea. He said that since both of their names contained the letter I, they could call their duo Double I. Far away, as Itsuki thought of Rikuru, Rikuru suddenly sneezed while training. Saya looked at him and asked if he had caught a cold. Rikuru scratched his head and said maybe someone was talking about him. Maybe Itsuki. Saya lowered her gaze and quietly asked how long it had been since the attack incident. She said she never expected them to be apart for so long, and wondered if Itsuki was doing well. Rikuru looked at her strangely. He said that if she was that worried, she should have gone to see Itsuki after the disaster beasts were defeated. Saya blushed deeply and bowed her head in embarrassment. A moment later, she thrust her hands forward and released a burst of water, sending Rikuru flying back as he shouted in surprise. Rikuru shouted that attacking suddenly was unfair, but Saya quickly replied that fair or not, it was sparring practice, and he was the one who left an opening. Just then, their teacher appeared behind them. Both students straightened up in shock. Rikuru called out, "Sensei," while the teacher scolded them, reminding them that the national tournament preliminaries would start the day after tomorrow. He asked if this was really the time to fool around. Saya's eyes lit up. She said she was excited to finally fight other awakened people, because sparring only with Rikuru had become boring. A glowing screen appeared beside her, revealing her stats as an awakened water elementalist. Rikuru looked at his own status window as well. He said he had never been to North District 4 and had heard it was a prosperous town. He said he wanted to see it with his own eyes soon. Elsewhere, someone opened a metal case holding 3 sharp crystal stones. It was Kinoshita. He looked at the crystals and frowned impatiently. He commented that the hound still hadn't arrived and said it was unusual for him to be late. His bodyguard standing behind him wondered if something unexpected had happened. Hearing that, Kinoshita's expression darkened. He muttered that those useless fools had failed again. His glasses glowed red as a message appeared, saying the Karma Stone had been used and experience had been gained. His bodyguard asked if they should send people to search. Kinoshita looked frustrated and said to forget about that person. The national tournament preliminaries were the top priority now. He muttered that if he failed, his father would lock him in the confinement room again. Then he asked about the matter he had assigned his bodyguard. His bodyguard reported the results. Out of the 3,113 participants in the northern continent, he had persuaded 87 to cooperate. All of them were level 5 or above, just as ordered. Hearing that, Kinoshita smiled and said his subordinate had done well, and that he was the only one he could rely on. He then took another glowing stone. His bodyguard told him that it was the last Karma Stone. Light surrounded Kinoshita as he broke it. The experience was absorbed, and his level went up. Power surged around Kinoshita as lightning burst from his body. He said it was enough and that he would use this strength to crush the commoners. A status screen appeared, showing Kinoshita Reiji, at level 12, job Lightning Elementalist, gift grade 2, attack 135, defense 130, agility 168, magic 170, total points 603. Then few hours later, a bright blue teleportation column formed outside the hospital. As Itsuki stood calmly in the front of it, he lowered his head, said sorry to his teacher, as he had let Choha end up in such a condition. His teacher commander Nento came out of the teleportation portal and asked what he wanted to do. He said he could dispose of Kinoshita if Itsuki wished. Itsuki looked up and answered firmly, telling his teacher to leave Kinoshita to him. His teacher agreed. He told Itsuki to explain the details of what happened later. Nearby, Iberia watched in amazement. He realized that the Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief had been Itsuki's teacher. Iberia understood why Itsuki wasn't surprised even after hearing who Iberia's father was. Iberia thought that Izumi Nento was truly a mysterious person. He even wondered if he should ask for his autograph later. Then, in the hospital room, Itsuki calmly explained what had happened and told his teacher that that was why he chose to participate in the Salvation League National Tournament preliminaries. His teacher said he understood and turned toward Choha, asking how she was feeling. Choa smiled softly. She said Tamacho had treated her, so she had fully recovered. A glowing green butterfly floated near her hand. She added that Iberia's rare karma tool had also helped in her healing. Hearing that, Izumi Nento looked at Iberia in surprise. He said that since Iberia possessed the rare karma tool Kodama bandage, crafted by Aiden, he must be Aiden's son. Iberia was surprised to hear that. Realization hit him as he thought to himself that Izumi Nento knew about karma tools, and even recognized his father. He reminded himself that he needed to show the dignity of the Crafter King's eldest son. He pointed proudly at himself, and shouted with confidence that he was Aiden's father. Hearing that, everyone stared at him in silence. Then Itsuki told him that he had gotten it backwards. Hearing that, Iberia lowered his head, hiding his red face behind his hand. In a shaky voice, he apologized and admitted that Aiden was his father. Commander Nento cleared his throat and tried to shift the atmosphere. He said he was grateful that Iberia had saved his daughter. He added that once the preliminaries ended, he wanted to visit Aiden together with Tenma. He then reminded Itsuki and Iberia that they had to prepare for the tournament and told them to head out. He promised that he and Choha would come to watch tomorrow. Iberia raised his fist excitedly and agreed. He told Commander Nento that he could relax because they would definitely pass the preliminaries. Beside him, Itsuki stood quietly and nodded. After they left, Choha commented that her father had really taken a liking to Tenma because she remembered how, when he used to meet with Jin, he would always bring her along to meetings. Hearing that, Commander Nento told her that because of childhood trauma, whenever Itsuki faced disaster beasts, powerful self-destructive impulses would awaken inside him. But Itsuki's self-destructive impulses weakened only when someone he wanted to protect was nearby. He explained to Choha that this was the reason he placed Choha by Itsuki's side. Hearing that, Choha realized that her father wanted her to become Itsuki's friend, become his weakness, and become the person he wanted to protect. Choha repeated the thought quietly, wondering if she was truly the one Tenma wanted to protect. While she was lost in her thoughts, the commander then stood up and revealed to Choha that the disaster beast attack at Itsuki's school had been planned, not a coincidence. Hearing that, Choha reacted with surprise. Commander Nento added that more traitors were joining the disaster beasts, and that similar attacks on commanders-in-chief had happened across other continents as well. The commander turned toward a large window, his silhouette dark against the night. He said that for now humanity's future was pitch black. Then he added softly that Itsuki would surely be the one to illuminate it. His voice rang out that Itsuki would become a light of hope. Then, at the national tournament preliminary venue in North District 4, the massive circular arena sat in the middle of the wasteland. Inside, a crowd gathered. Itsuki looked around and remarked that there were more people than expected. Iberia explained that once news spread that Commander Nento would be watching, many who originally refused suddenly decided to participate. The number of contestants rose from about 3,000 to nearly 5,000. On the side, Reiji glared in frustration. He muttered that Izumi Nento had increased the number of unpredictable variables far more than expected. His subordinate tried to calm him, saying the newcomers were just last-minute riffraff who didn't have time to form teams, so Reiji's side still held the numerical advantage. He told Reiji that he had ordered the recruits to tie red ribbons on their right arms so they could be identified as allies. On the other side of the arena, Rikuru and his group noticed the ribbons. Rikuru asked if red ribbons were trending now, and wondered if they should wear them too. Saya beside him commented that since Commander Nento was coming to watch, maybe Itsuki would also appear. Then the host of the national tournament preliminaries, Shinshihara Soryu, stepped forward and addressed the crowd. He told everyone that he would explain the rules before the preliminaries began. He said the preliminary venue was divided into two areas, an external area and an internal area. In the first stage, the participants would start from 4 different directions in the external zone. A large diagram of the arena appeared on the screen, showing the outer ring and the inner circle labeled as the internal area. Soryu continued explaining that the first challenge was a race based on time. Everyone had to reach the internal area as fast as possible. The moment someone entered the inner zone, their rank would automatically be recorded on the bracelet they were wearing. Only the first 50 to arrive would advance to the second stage. Then a hologram of the bracelet lit up, showing how it displayed the rank of the participant. Some competitors reacted immediately. Rikuru raised his arm and commented that the bracelet had a surprising function. Hearing that, Saya beside him thought that eliminating thousands of people in just the first stage was extremely harsh. Next, Soryu explained that each person was allowed to carry up to 2 karma tools. Participants were also free to team up with anyone they wanted, and use any method necessary. Results were all that mattered. As the rules were being announced, Iberia nudged Itsuki and pointed ahead excitedly, asking Itsuki to look. He was pointing at the Reiji team in front of him. As the host announced that the first stage would end with rankings and an explanation of the second stage, Iberia pointed at Kinoshita Reiji standing in the middle of a group and told Itsuki that he was Kinoshita. Meanwhile, Kinoshita ordered the people he had recruited to obstruct anyone running ahead of him. Watching from the side, Iberia guessed that the people standing near Kinoshita were the ones he had bought off. He suggested that they should rush into the internal area as soon as possible. His plan was to launch a surprise attack once Kinoshita lowered his guard after entering the interior. But before he could continue explaining, Iberia suddenly froze with a shocked expression. He saw Itsuki walking toward Kinoshita. Shocked, Iberia asked if he had even been listening. One of Kinoshita's men noticed Itsuki approaching. He asked who Itsuki was. Another man warned everyone to be careful because Itsuki didn't have a red ribbon. Just then, from high above, the host raised his voice and declared that the first stage was beginning. The host looked at the students and commented that more and more young people wanted to join the Salvation League, which he found reassuring. But suddenly, a voice told him that having numbers without quality was meaningless. It was a black-haired man. He said that in their time, there had been many participants above level 15. This black-haired man was also an instructor. A blue screen appeared, showing Heitan Akira's information, but most of it was hidden. Instructor Soryu corrected him, saying that only 2 participants had reached that level in Heitan's year. That year, Heitan Akira was at level 18, and along with him was Taewajin at level 21. Remembering the past, Instructor Heitan commented that things were boring now without rookies like Taewa. He said he hoped someone similar existed in the current group. But Instructor Soryu shook his head and replied that geniuses like that did not appear easily. Instructor Heitan stepped forward and asked Commander Nento about a rumor. He said he had heard that a student from the northern continent had defeated a level 8 skeleton soldier right after awakening and later became Commander Nento's pupil. Instructor Soryu widened his eyes and asked if it was true, calling it ridiculous for someone to defeat level 8 monsters immediately after awakening. Commander Nento, covered in dark flames, answered calmly, saying that the rumor was true. Hearing this, Instructor Heitan asked if that person was in the group they were watching. Instructor Soryu thought that since this was Azumi's second recognized pupil after Taewajin, it meant the student must possess exceptional talent. Examiner Soryu looked at the participants list and wondered who the mysterious participant could be. The tablet displayed the first candidate. It showed Horino Rakuru, a level 10 metal elementalist. Examiner Soryu noted that Rakuru's gift was only an ordinary grade 2, and decided it couldn't be him. Another profile appeared. Kisaragi Saya, a level 11 water elementalist with a grade 1 gift. She specialized in support-type abilities, so he assumed she wasn't the one either. The next image revealed Hanyu Kana, a wood elementalist at an unusually high level 16. Seeing this, he guessed she must be the hidden talent, but when he looked at Commander Nento, he didn't say anything. Seeing that, Instructor Soryu realized that his guesses seemed incorrect, even though Hanyu had the highest level among all participants. Just then, Instructor Heitan pointed out that among this year's participants, there was even someone at level 0, but Instructor Sorya didn't think much of it, and remarked that there was always one person every year who joined the tournament out of curiosity, only to get beaten badly and withdraw soon after. On the other hand, Kinoshita's group burst into laughter as Kinoshita pointed toward Itsuki, shouting in disbelief that a level 0 had really joined the competition. His team laughed loudly, mocking Itsuki and asking if he had gotten lost. Hearing them, Itsuki stepped forward silently and raised his hand, showing the mechanical glove of Charles on his hand. Kinoshita froze when he saw the glove. He stuttered, recognizing it as something belonging to Charles. Fear spread across his face as he demanded to know who Itsuki was. Itsuki stared directly at Kinoshita and asked if Kinoshita was the one who had been looking for him this whole time. Hearing that, Kinoshita grew furious. He refused to believe it. He shouted that there was no way a level 0 could have defeated Oga. He insisted that Itsuki must have been sent by someone just to shake him up. He then pointed forward and yelled for his group to attack. The men beside him grinned confidently and stepped forward. They said they would handle it and make Itsuki regret provoking them. While Kinoshita's men stayed back to block Itsuki, with a burst of purple lightning, Kinoshita rushed toward the center, saying he didn't have time to deal with trash like Itsuki. As Kinoshita left, his remaining men formed a circle around Itsuki, ready to attack him. From the watchtower, Instructor Heitan watched everything, and thought that there were 3 level 6 fighters and 2 level 7 fighters present, so there was no need to wait for the results. He thought that if Itsuki just begged for mercy now, he might survive. On the ground, Iberia also grew nervous and started calculating the situation. He thought he could take down one opponent, but even with Itsuki's strength, fighting 4 enemies at once would be impossible. That meant he had no choice but to use a certain technique. Thinking that, he stepped forward slowly while reaching toward the item at his side. Suddenly, one of Kanoshida's men, a red-haired man, smirked as he looked at Itsuki. He said he had expected a strong opponent to appear, but the first one they encountered was just level 0 trash. Hearing that, Itsuki lowered his head slightly, his face hidden in shadow as he told the man in front of him to move. The red-haired man widened his eyes in surprise on hearing that. He hadn't expected such blunt words. For a moment, he froze, then burst into loud laughter, throwing his head back. He mocked Itsuki's attitude, but Instructor Hiton smirked instead when he heard Itsuki. He said he liked that attitude, and offered to step in later, claiming he would save Itsuki when things got bad. Then the red-haired man leaned forward with a twisted grin. He told Itsuki to let him crack open his head and see what was inside. Itsuki didn't reply to him. Instead, the next second, Itsuki struck. His fist slammed into the red-haired man's face with overwhelming force, sending blood and broken teeth flying. As the red-haired man fell backward, screaming, Itsuki repeated in a cold voice that he had already told him to move. Instructor Hiton was shocked to see that Itsuki's opponent had been 7 levels higher than him. Yet Itsuki had defeated him instantly. He couldn't believe that Itsuki had instantly killed the red-haired man.